Old Master Zhuang showed me a sand table battle map and asked me to analyze the situation and figure out how to retreat our Dacian army back to the city with minimal losses. I took one look at that mess and almost laughed. Our main force had pushed way too deep into enemy territory, camped by a river, and got stuck in a standoff. Our backup troops walked right into an ambush, and a smaller unit was getting crushed from higher ground. What kind of idiot commander set this up? I told the old man straight up. The general who led that main force was either a fool or brain dead. He should be executed immediately. And honestly, the supreme commander who picked him wasn't much better either. Prince Li Qianxing burst out laughing at that. But Master Zhuang? His face went red, and he started stuttering at me again. He yelled that he didn't ask me about the commander. He asked about the battlefield situation. He threatened to punish me if I couldn't answer properly. I shrugged and gave him what he wanted. All three positions were losing situations for our side. The first force was stuck deep with stretched supply lines, letting the enemy surround and pick off our reinforcements before circling back to finish them. The second group was pinned down under enemy archers on high ground. The third, our reinforcements, walked straight into a trap. We were losing everywhere. Master Zhuang stroked his beard and nodded, admitting my analysis was decent. I had to be careful with this old man, though. His temper was something else. I didn't want to accidentally make him so mad he dropped dead. He's a grand scholar from the Hanlin Academy. If he died because of me, I'd be in serious trouble. Before we could move to the second question, a eunuch announced the emperor's arrival. His Majesty walked in with both princesses, Chang'e and Taiping, plus his guards, including Li Yu, who I'd swindled out of 100 taels, and Li Mu, whose rib I'd cracked. Great company. We all knelt and paid our respects. The emperor glanced at the sand table with an amused smile, but said nothing. The two princesses ignored me and Master Zhuang completely and went straight to their brother, the prince. Taiping was the lively one. She'd basically forced the emperor to bring her here. Then she looked over at me, blinked a few times, and said I actually looked okay, not as ugly as the palace rumors claimed. Both princesses kept staring at me like I was some kind of exotic animal. I couldn't stare back, not with the emperor, Wang De, Li Yu, and Li Mu all standing right there. So I just snuck a few glances. Even from those few peeks, I could tell both princesses were stunning. Chang'e was the older one, elegant in a blue silk dress, with flawless skin and a figure that could stop traffic. Taiping was younger, but just as beautiful in her pink outfit, with a face like carved jade. Royal genes really are something else. They were easily on par with my 3 wives back home. But then, right as I was thinking that, my system suddenly activated. Ding! New binding target detected. Princess Chang'e, Li Qianro, Affection 1. Ding! Gu Zijian and Chu Qingcheng have reached max affection. Unbound from active tracking. What the? I blurted out loud before I could stop myself. Everyone turned to look at me. Wang De started trembling again out of sheer habit. The emperor's face darkened. The prince, both princesses, everyone was staring. I broke into a cold sweat and dropped to my knees fast. Your Majesty, forgive me. I suddenly thought of a strategy to solve Master Zhuang's battlefield problem. That's why I cried out. Everyone relaxed after hearing that. The emperor raised an eyebrow, glanced at the sand table, then asked Master Zhuang what he'd been teaching. Zhuang explained the 2 questions he'd posed to me. Analyze the battle, then figure out how to retreat with minimal losses. The emperor's stern expression softened. He told me to stand up. I'd been kneeling so long my forehead was practically dripping sweat. I needed to stop having these outbursts. The emperor let it slide once or twice, but pushed my luck too many times, and who knows what punishment I'd get. But seriously, it wasn't my fault. The system had been silent forever. Then the moment Princess Chang'e showed up, it hit me with notifications. Was it trying to get me to marry a princess? I already had 3 wives. I couldn't exactly make a princess a concubine. But tanking her affection on purpose was also a terrible idea. Making an enemy of the royal family would ruin me. Nobody knew what was going through my head. They all just thought I looked nervous because of the emperor. Sun Jian, the emperor said, tell me how you answered those 2 questions. I want to hear it myself. He'd fought 100 battles in his life. He'd already studied the sand table and formed his own conclusions. And it wasn't just him. The princesses, the prince, even Li Mu, Li Yu, and Wang De were all watching me with curiosity. Apparently my name had spread across the entire capital these past few days. My poems, the bandit raid, the weapons I'd developed, the potatoes, everyone was talking about me. The princesses had even begged the emperor to bring them to the Eastern Palace just to see me. The emperor pressed me with that commanding gaze of his. If you were the commander, how would you minimize losses and get the remaining troops safely back to the city? I'm afraid I won't explain it well, I said, cupping my fists. This isn't a real battle, he replied. It's just a sand table exercise. I looked around at everyone's expectant faces. No point dodging it anymore. Then I'll speak freely, Your Majesty. The emperor gave me his word. Speak freely, no punishment today. So I did. I told him that before solving this mess, we needed to understand why it happened. The general who led the troops was a complete idiot, and the marshal who appointed him wasn't much better. After this battle, both of them should be executed on the spot. Everyone chuckled at my blunt insults, especially the two princesses who couldn't stop laughing. The emperor nodded and told me to continue. So I dropped my real answer. If I were commanding, I wouldn't retreat at all. I'd attack. The whole room went silent. Everyone stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Master Zhuang, the prince, Li Yu, Li Mu, even the princesses, all stunned. Master Zhuang exploded first. He called me reckless, said I was talking nonsense in front of the emperor, accused me of wanting to send all the soldiers to their graves. He was furious, face bright red. But then he turned to the emperor and offered to take the blame himself, saying as my teacher, it was his failure. I had to admit, the old man had a hot temper, but he was protecting me. That warmed my heart a little. Even the prince tugged my sleeve and whispered that I shouldn't joke about something like this. I stayed calm and reminded the emperor of his promise. He said I could speak freely today. Was I still allowed to talk? The emperor didn't get angry. He told Master Zhuang to stand up, then invited everyone to share their opinions on my idea. Liu went first, sneering at me. He called my strategy the naive ramblings of a bookworm, foolish beyond measure. Said if this were a real battle, I should be executed on the spot. Li Mu backed up his brother. He admitted I was a decent fighter, maybe even good general material, but definitely not commander material. In all his years of battle experience, he'd never heard of attacking from such a hopeless position. It would be like an ant trying to stop a chariot. Wanda the eunuch just smiled and said he didn't understand military stuff. His only job was serving the emperor. Then the emperor asked the prince. Li Qianxin glanced nervously at me and Master Zhuang before agreeing with Li Yu and Li Mu. He said a slow, careful retreat made more sense, and attacking would only increase casualties. Everyone looked at me with contempt, all thinking the same thing. This kid is in way over his head. The emperor turned back to me. Everyone thinks you're a naive fool, Sun Jian. They want to retreat. Now tell me, what exactly do you mean by attack? I smiled, walked up to the sand table, and spoke to the room. The highest form of war is to defeat the enemy's strategy. Next is to break their alliances. After that comes fighting their army. The lowest form is attacking their walls. Would everyone agree? The room went quiet. They'd never heard those words before. They came from Sun Tzu's Art of War from my previous world. This world had its own military texts, but nothing exactly like it. After thinking it over, everyone slowly nodded, including the emperor and Master Zhuang, stroking their beards thoughtfully. I started laying out my military philosophy. Honestly, I was just borrowing from Sun Tzu, poems I could steal, so why not military strategy too? The best strategy is to outthink your enemy. Next is diplomacy. After that comes fighting. The worst option is sieging a city. I told them war is all about deception, being unpredictable, striking where the enemy doesn't expect. The key to victory is understanding your enemy's plans and using that against them. Everyone's expressions changed. They were looking at me completely differently now, like I'd suddenly grown a few inches taller. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you'll win every battle, I continued. Then I pointed at the third battlefield on the sand table, where the enemy troops were hiding in dry grass and dead trees, waiting to ambush our reinforcements. It looks bad for us on the surface, I said. But look closer. What do you see around the enemy's position? Dead grass, dry reeds, bare trees everywhere. What does that tell you? Everyone went quiet, thinking hard. Even the two princesses were frowning in concentration. Prince Li Qianxing suddenly grabbed my hand, excited. Fire attack. It's autumn or winter. Everything's dry. We can burn them out. I smiled and shook my head. You're half right, Your Highness. You got the terrain, but you missed the other half of the weather advantage. Old Master Zhuang stroked his beard and spoke up. The winter northwest wind? I gave him a mental thumbs up. The old man really did have some skill. Exactly, wind direction. The enemy is to our east, we're to the west. If they attack us, we hold our ground and set fire to their position. The northwest wind carries the flames straight into them. Their whole area becomes an inferno. Li Yu and Li Mu finally got it too and started shouting that they understood. I gave them a look. These two had been mocking me earlier, and now they were acting all enlightened? Everything had already been spelled out. If they still didn't get it, they might as well go bang their heads against a wall. Then I pointed to the first and second battlefields. The first force pushed in too deep, but they're only 15 li from the second battlefield. If I were commander, I'd order the first unit to reinforce the second, trap the enemy on their hilltop, beat the war drums, and surround them, but not attack. Surround but not attack? The prince asked. I smiled. That hill is isolated. The enemy thinks holding high ground gives them an advantage, but that's stupid. If we just surround them without fighting, their whole strategy falls apart. Then we cut their food supply, poison their water, beat drums day and night to destroy their morale and sleep. How long can they last up there? They'll collapse on their own. The room went dead silent. Everyone stared at the sand table, then back at me. What looked like 3 hopeless losing positions could actually be flipped into a total victory if you used the right tactics. This wasn't armchair theory. It was real, logical strategy. Master Zhuang and the prince were looking at me like I was some kind of freak. Li Yu and Li Mu's faces were burning red. All their earlier mockery had just slapped them right back. Then the system chimed in again. Princess Changle's affection 2. Current value 3. My heart tightened. I didn't even dare look in her direction. At this rate, she was seriously heading toward becoming wife material. This was getting dangerous. Your Majesty, I said, cupping my fists. I've finished my answer. I straightened up and bowed to the emperor. He looked at me with that meaningful smile of his and asked everyone if they had any objections to what I'd said. Nobody made a sound. Their faces said it all. The emperor laughed and gave everyone an out. Your answer was impressive, Sun Jian, but theory is just theory. Real battlefields require adapting to actual conditions. Even the best strategy needs brave soldiers and disciplined commanders to carry it out. I played along. Your Majesty is absolutely right. He said he had state business to handle and left with his guards. Both princesses snuck one last look at me before hurrying after him. Once it was just me, the prince, and Master Zhuang again. The prince grabbed my hands like an excited fan. Sun Jian, you're amazing. No wonder you defeated hundreds of bandits with just villagers. With talent like yours, our borders will be secure. I waved it off modestly. Meanwhile, Master Zhuang looked embarrassed. He'd meant to test me, but I ended up teaching him instead. I'm getting old, he sighed. The next generation really does surpass the last. I tried to comfort him, saying I was just a farmer who paid more attention to weather and seasons than most people. He didn't buy it. So I switched to full flattery mode, comparing myself to a dim star next to his bright moon, a donkey next to his mythical beast. He cut me off before I could finish and said something that caught me by surprise. He wanted me to write down everything I'd said today and compile it into a book on military strategy. He thought my insights were worth preserving. A military book? That's easy. I had Sun Tzu's Art of War memorized cover to cover. I could write it out any time. After that, I formally performed the student-teacher ceremony with Master Zhuang and served him tea. At noon, a second teacher named Master Imo took over to teach the prince riding, archery, and martial arts. There was also a third teacher for politics and governance, but I only had to attend the first 2 teachers' classes. By late afternoon, I clocked out and headed home. The prince begged me to sneak him out again, but the emperor had just visited. No way I was risking that. I made some excuse about next time for sure and bolted, leaving the poor guy stuck in class. I collapsed on my bed, exhausted. Just one day of the prince's schedule nearly killed me. I couldn't imagine how Li Qiansheng had survived years of this. No wonder he'd snuck out to that pleasure house. This kind of pressure would drive anyone crazy. The kid was past 20, and the emperor hadn't even arranged a marriage for him yet. I was just lying there feeling sorry for my royal brother when the system chimed again. Ding. Princess Changle's affection 3. Current value 7. I shot up from the bed. I'd almost forgotten about this mess. One second I was pitying the prince. The next I realized my situation was even worse. Her affection hit 7 in a single day, and we only met once. What was she doing? Did someone tell her something about me? At this rate, I'd be eligible for the first lottery draw soon. Hey system, I yelled in my head. Can you cancel this binding? Bind me to the emperor instead. I don't care. I already have 3 wives. Even with medicine, my back can't handle more. And why'd you pick a princess? How am I supposed to deal with this later? The system, as usual, said nothing back. The system wouldn't even talk to me. It just displayed text on the screen. Binding is triggered randomly by internal programming. Cannot unbind. If you don't like it, you can unbind the entire system. Oh, so now it had an attitude? I talked back, and the system typed 2 words. Yes, and unbind me then. Fine. I lost that argument in 2 rounds. I still needed this system to help me reach the top. No way I was unbinding it. Okay, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have yelled at you. No response. Not even text. I panicked. Hey, system, talk to me. Don't scare me like this. Still nothing. Did it actually unbind? That would be a disaster. System buddy. System daddy. System grandpa. Finally, after what felt like forever, the screen lit up with 2 lines. Apology accepted. And bye-bye. Followed by a picture of a middle finger. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. At least it didn't actually unbind. That was a relief. Whatever. If it wanted to bind Princess Changle to me, fine. I'd just treat her as a points ATM. Let her like me all she wants. I wasn't planning on marrying a princess. No need to worry about it. Husband, who were you yelling daddy and grandpa at just now? Qingqing and Zijian walked into my study looking confused, glancing around the room. I lied without blinking. Oh, nothing. Tomorrow's my first morning court session, so I was just praying to my ancestors, asking them to watch over me from the afterlife. They bought it. I flopped onto the couch and asked Zijian to massage my back. Sitting all day in the palace had wrecked me. She got to work while Qingqing fed me grapes. Life was good for a moment. Qingqing asked if I needed anything for tomorrow's court session. I told her just to have old Jiang get me a different carriage. I never wanted to experience that wild ride from this morning again. I noticed Warner was missing. Qingqing explained she'd gone to the workshop in the back courtyard. The first batch of refined salt had already been sent to market. Old Jiang was out selling, and Old Chow was buying raw materials, so Warner volunteered to supervise production. But I figured she was really just waiting to taste the high-proof distilled liquor I'd been developing. Back in Sun Family Village, both she and Zijian had been drooling ever since I described it, but we left for the capital too fast for them to try it. I could tell Zijian wanted to go too, so I sent them both to the workshop. I warned them the liquor was extremely strong. Just a small sip, don't get drunk. Once they left, I sat down to write a letter to Governor Yao. This wasn't a friendly hello, I needed his help. Governor Yao was the only provincial governor allowed to attend morning court, since Yongzhou contained the capital itself. Tomorrow was court day, and I was nobody, a tiny imperial reader with no power and no soldiers. If the emperor hadn't personally granted me permission, I wouldn't even qualify to attend. Taking down the Minister of War, Wei Xian, wasn't going to be easy. He had real power and real troops. Our feud was a dead knot. Neither of us wanted to make peace. One of us had to fall. Things had been calm lately only because Inspector Xiong was still investigating those 2 incidents, keeping Wei Xian cautious. But once that passed, he'd come after me. Waiting around to get hit wasn't my style. Strike first or get struck. My letter was simple. I asked Governor Yao to meet me at my residence after court tomorrow to see if he knew anything useful that could help me bring down Wei Xian. I sent a trustworthy villager off with the letter and my personal token. Governor Yao should receive it by evening. Since I'm just a reader companion with no official rank, I couldn't use the government mail system. I had to send my letter to Governor Yao through the civilian postal service. What a hassle. After everything was arranged, Old Jiang and Old Chow came back and reported to me right away. Old Jiang was grinning ear to ear. Our refined salt sold out the moment it hit the market. Over 215 silver taels in a single day. 200 pounds of fine salt, gone in the time it takes to burn 2 sticks of incense. I wasn't surprised. My refined salt was in a completely different league from what the nobles were used to eating. A product this good sells itself. Give it some time, and it would spread across the whole country. Old Jiang asked me how to use the money. I didn't hesitate. Keep enough for costs and wages. Invest everything else into opening new branches. Old Jiang nearly choked. He wanted to save some old habits from being poor his whole life. Old Chow snatched the money bag from him. If we invest today, we earn it back tomorrow. He wants to expand across the capital. I nodded. The capital was big enough for 20 branch stores easily. But I told old Chow we'd need a bigger workshop first. Our backyard operation couldn't keep up with that kind of demand. I wanted to build a proper factory outside and turn our home workshop into a research facility only. Old Chow asked if he should find land for it. I shook my head. I have someone better in mind for that. Someone who can protect us too. They guessed Governor Yao. I told them even Governor Yao wasn't big enough. My shield had a much higher status than that. Their eyes went wide. I could tell they were both thinking of the emperor himself. I patted old Chow's shoulder and told them not to guess. We weren't at that stage yet. We'd just started. For now, old Chow should focus on securing 5 new storefronts, which our current production could handle. Old Chow pointed out we needed more people, workers for the factory, delivery crews, shopkeepers for the new stores. I'd already thought about that. I told old Jiang to scout the city for beggars and starving people we could hire as workers. Good character was the top requirement. I gave them their final instruction. Put a trusted person in charge of each new branch and keep all the finances firmly in our own hands. Before leaving, old Jiang mentioned our distilled liquor would be ready tonight. About 100 pounds, stored in purple gourd bottles, 1 pound each. Pricing was set, but it still needed a name. I thought for a moment. Forget Your Sorrow's Valley. They looked confused. No education, so the meaning went over their heads. I explained with an old poem. When I sing drunk, you sing along. When I fall drunk, you hold me up. Only wine can make you forget your worries. Basically, drink our liquor and all your troubles disappear. They nodded like they sort of understood. Now stop standing around and get back to work. By nightfall, our workshop produced the first batch of Forget Your Sorrow's Valley. The moment that liquor came out, the smell filled the entire mansion and wouldn't go away. Everyone was practically drooling. They couldn't believe something this amazing existed, like heavenly nectar had fallen to earth. And they were the ones who made it. Old Chow had to threaten to chop off hands and tongues to stop the workers from drinking the whole batch before it even reached the store. He yelled at everyone that we could drink anytime. The liquor wasn't going to disappear. If we did our jobs right, I wouldn't let anyone go without. That outburst made things awkward, though. My 3 wives had been helping in the workshop all day, hoping to taste the first batch. After old Chow's speech, they felt too embarrassed to ask. Old Jiang noticed and quickly pulled out 3 bottles he'd set aside for them. But Warner pushed hers back, saying it wouldn't be fair if they drank while nobody else could. Ching Ching and Zijian did the same. Old Chow stood there feeling like an idiot for not watching his mouth. Ching Chong handled it gracefully, told everyone to get back to work, and said they'd all taste the next batch together. Then she pulled the other 2 away. That woman really knew how to smooth things over. After they left, old Jiang told old Chow to take 10 extra bottles to the back house for the ladies, while he loaded up the cart with the remaining 100 bottles for the store. On the way to the shop, the liquor's aroma leaked out from the cart, and people on the street kept turning their heads. Some chased the cart trying to buy it on the spot. Old Jiang told them the shop address and kept moving. By the time he arrived and unloaded from the back, a long line had already formed at the front door, most of them drawn by the smell alone, plus some regulars who'd come for more salt. Old Jiang played it smart. He didn't rush into pricing. He explained the name, talked up the brewing process, then poured out a few small tasting cups. What happened next shocked even him. After just a few sips, people's faces changed completely. Before he could say a word, a 20-tael silver bar slammed onto the counter. This is the greatest liquor I've ever tasted. How much? I'm buying. Sell it to me. Me. 100 taels. I'll take everything you've got. The shop turned into a madhouse. Every single bottle sold out instantly at 10 taels each, over 1,000 taels total. And nobody thought it was expensive. They felt like they'd gotten a bargain. People who missed out started buying from those who'd already purchased at even higher prices. The smell was just too tempting. Buyers were drinking while walking down the street, attracting even more attention. The craziness at the shop was beyond anything we expected. People who bought a bottle drank half and resold the other half, like scalpers. A bottle that cost 10 taels suddenly went for 20 taels per half bottle. The first buyers basically drank for free and some even made money on top of it. Old Jiang and the helpers were stunned. This was supposed to be a chaotic era. Where were all these rich people coming from? 20 taels was more than most people earned in a lifetime, and they were throwing it down for half a bottle of liquor. Some people who couldn't buy it at any price just camped out in front of our shop, laying blankets on the ground, determined to be first in line next time. Old Jiang tried to chase them off, but gave up. Soon the whole street was lined with people sleeping outside our door. Free security, I guess. Word spread across the entire capital overnight. Everyone was talking about this mystery shop and trying to figure out who owned it. Some taverns and pleasure houses even bought small amounts at insane prices and tried to reverse engineer the recipe. Good luck with that. Back home, Old Chow brought us 10 bottles. I sat down with my 3 wives for a proper meal, great food, great liquor, and 3 beautiful women taking turns pouring for me. I'd sneak a kiss from one, then put my arm around another. Better than being a god. Warner, who grew up drinking Royal Palace wines as a princess of Greyjoy, said even imperial liquor couldn't compare. She thought 10 taels was too cheap. This stuff was priceless. Ching Ching agreed, praising how smooth it was going down, how the flavor lingered, and how it finished with a subtle sweetness. Meanwhile, Zijian had quietly polished off a bottle and a half by herself. Her face was bright red, and she was getting wobbly. Ching Ching told her to slow down, but she kept saying, just one more cup. At about 42 degrees alcohol content, the stuff had serious kick. Before she could even finish complimenting me, she passed out face first on the table, snoring softly. Ching Ching and Wano laughed. I'd been planning a wild night with all 3 of them, but that dream died fast. Warner saw right through me. Before I could even suggest anything, she volunteered to take the drunk Zijian to a side room. 1 wife drunk, 1 wife babysitting. That left just Ching Ching. Fine, 1 is better than none. I pulled her into my arms, ready to get romantic, when footsteps came pounding toward the door. Old Jiang burst in wanting to report the sales numbers. Ching Ching jumped out of my lap, face red as a tomato, and started clearing dishes. She reminded me I had morning court tomorrow. Happens once every 10 days. Can't be late. I needed to be up around 3 a.m. If I fooled around tonight, I'd probably oversleep. So I ended up in the study alone. Old Jiang showed me the bag of silver from tonight's liquor sales, grinning from ear to ear. Looking at that fat sack of money, I couldn't help but grin too. Old Jiang had the new carriage ready at the door, the enclosed type I'd asked for. We raced to the palace and made it on time. The courtyard outside was already packed with carriages of all colors, and officials were streaming in through the gates. I followed the crowd through Jianfu Gate and into the waiting hall. I counted over 300 officials. The capital really did have a lot of people ranked 5th grade and above. I looked around for Governor Yao to have a quick chat, but couldn't find him anywhere. Couldn't find Inspector Xiong Jujing either. I asked a nearby official and learned that ministers who serve in the imperial study don't wait in the regular hall. They go straight to a side chamber to see the emperor first. As for Xiong, he wasn't in that group, but officials with urgent reports or those summoned by name also skipped the line. The official suddenly looked me over. Wait, who are you? I've never seen you at court before. I introduced myself politely. I'm Sun Jian, imperial reader to the crown prince, appointed by his majesty. His eyes nearly popped out of his head. Sun Jian? You're Sun Jian? The one the emperor personally appointed. He grabbed my arm and wouldn't let go. He started gushing about my poem, Water Melody, and how my name was all over the capital. He called me talented, handsome, extraordinary, acting like some crazed fan meeting a celebrity. I told him to let go. That only made him grip tighter. Then, before I could stop him, the lunatic shouted at the top of his lungs. Everyone, come look. This is Sun Jian. The Sun Jian. Within seconds, I was surrounded by a mob of government officials. They crowded around me like I was a zoo exhibit, pointing and chattering. Is that really him? He's so young. How could he beat General Li? I heard even Governor Yao praised his medical skills. Some were skeptical, some amazed, some jealous, some starstruck. A few weirdos even tried to pinch me to check if I was real. One guy's hand started reaching toward my crotch, and I jumped back fast. What the hell are you doing? Keep your hands to yourselves. You're all court officials. Act like it. That snapped them out of it. They straightened their robes and calmed down, looking a bit embarrassed. The first guy, the one who'd grabbed me, stepped forward and introduced himself properly. My apologies, Sir Sunday. I'm Fu Hui, Junior Minister of the Court of Judicial Review. Junior Minister of Judicial Review? That's a fourth-rank official. And this is how he behaves? I gave him a half-hearted bow back. He apologized again, saying he'd admired me for so long that meeting me in person made him lose his composure. The other officials behind him bowed and apologized too. Fu Hui explained that my deeds and reputation had spread across the entire capital. The other officials nodded along. Apparently, there was even a folk song about me going around. Sun the Reader from Hongnong, heaven sent talent for all to see, bandits crushed and healing mastered. Wherever he goes, the people prosper. The information was spreading way too fast. Someone had to be pushing this behind the scenes. Everyone knew about me except me. My military inventions, the new crops, the bandit raid, saving Lady Wong, that poem I wrote, even breaking Li Mu's rib. It was all out there. I took a deep breath. Hard to tell if this was a blessing or a curse. The speed and detail of it all was alarming. Someone could easily use this attention against me. At least my workshop business and my private conversation with the emperor at the restaurant hadn't leaked yet. I played humble and told everyone I was just a junior who needed their guidance. They kept flattering me, but I noticed something. Everyone crowding around me was fourth rank or below, mostly without real power. The higher officials with actual authority sat inside sipping tea, barely glancing my way. A few made brief eye contact and gave a polite nod. That was it. I spotted the ministers sitting in the front row. Among them was Wei Xian, the Minister of War, my enemy. He had protruding brow bones, thin eyebrows, squinty eyes, and a sunken face with a little white beard on his chin. He looked exactly like the kind of person who'd be cold-blooded and ruthless. Seeing him made my fists clench. All those villagers who followed me, left dead in the wilderness because of him. But this wasn't the place. I'd settle that debt later. My little fanboy Fu Hui introduced me to a bunch of officials. Military officers wanted to spar and drink with me. Civil officials wanted to discuss poetry and farming. Some even recited poems on the spot, hoping I'd critique them. I dodged everything with, next time, definitely. When the morning bell rang, a eunuch called out that court was in session. Everyone filed into the Golden Hall. Inside, the emperor sat on his throne in a golden dragon robe and purple gold crown, looking every bit the ruler. The crown prince stood at the front, then the second prince, then the prime minister, followed by the 3 dukes and 6 ministers, all arranged by rank. I stood in the very last row. After everyone paid their respects, the 6 ministries gave their reports. Most of it was routine. The emperor had already reviewed the paperwork. Court was mostly just hearing results and giving direction. Once the reports were done, Wangda called out, "If you have matters to present, speak now. Otherwise, court is dismissed." Xiong Jujing stepped forward from the civil official's side, knelt down, and held up a thick stack of documents. "Your Majesty, I have a matter to report." The whole hall stirred. Both Wei Xian and I tensed up. We both knew what this was about. Xiong had been called in before court started, which meant the investigation had turned up results. The senior ministers in the imperial study probably already knew. This was just making it official for everyone else. I was ordered to investigate the case of Reader's son, Jian, being framed and attacked, Xiong announced. I have made some progress and wish to present my findings. The officials started whispering and exchanging looks. They'd all heard my name plenty, but most only knew about the assassination attempt on the road to the capital. The details about the framing were news to almost everyone. The officials were all shocked when they learned I'd been not just attacked, but also framed. Some were surprised that a small-time reader like me could have so many enemies. Others could tell that the emperor bringing this up in open court meant he really valued me. The emperor told Xiong Jujing to share his findings with everyone. Xiong stood up and laid it out. He'd been investigating 2 cases. First, the black-robed assassins who attacked me 60 miles outside the capital. Second, the woman who threw herself under my carriage the next day. The assassins were all from Chinsong, ages 19 to 30, professionally trained. They'd entered the capital over 6 months ago pretending to visit relatives and stayed at an inn called Tongfu in the West District. They kept a low profile, no contact with outsiders. But all their living expenses were paid by Deputy Director Zhang from the imperial household, the old eunuch. He'd confessed and signed his statement in prison. The hall erupted. A 7th-rank eunuch secretly maintaining trained killers? He clearly didn't have the money or power to do that alone. And since the assassins had been positioned 6 months ago, they weren't originally targeting me specifically. I just happened to walk into it. Which raised an even bigger question. What was their real purpose? Xiong continued. He said Zhang definitely had a master pulling the strings. Following the money trail, he discovered Zhang had been exchanging huge sums with Lu San, the Vice Minister of Works, a third-rank official. Then Xiong sighed. Just as I was about to investigate further, Zhang killed himself in prison last night. My heart sank. Dead right when they found the next lead. Dead men tell no tales. The officials started looking around for Lu San, but he was nowhere in the hall. Wang De called his name. Lu San's boss, the Minister of Works, stepped forward instead. Your Majesty, my subordinate Lu San hanged himself at home last night. I only learned of it before court this morning. I've confirmed it was suicide. Another one dead? Every lead dies the moment you find it. The whole court went silent. Lu San was a third-rank official. This was a completely different level from an old eunuch dying in jail. Whoever was behind this had the power to push a senior official to kill himself just to cover their tracks. That narrowed it down to only the most powerful people in the empire. Princes, provincial governors, military generals, the 6 ministers, or the 3 dukes. Xiong was stuck. He'd planned to confront Lu San in open court with evidence and force a confession. Now both witnesses were dead overnight, and all leads were cut. The emperor's face was cold. Even he hadn't expected Lu San's death. Seeing everyone frozen, I stepped forward. Your Majesty, I have something to say. Speak. If both Zhang and Lu San are dead, why not investigate from the other angle? The identity of the woman who killed herself in front of my carriage? Maybe that trail leads somewhere. Xiong sighed. We already checked. She was also from Chinsong. Her name was Ma Tian. Her husband came to the capital for the imperial exams 2 years ago and disappeared. She traveled here looking for him, found nothing, and ended up taken in by Zhang at the Tongfu Inn, making a living washing clothes and cooking. Another dead end. Xiong concluded that the woman probably killed herself in front of my carriage because Zhang the eunuch manipulated her into it. Beyond that, there was nothing, no motive, no evidence, no leads. Case completely cold. I had to admit, Wei Xian cleaned up after himself perfectly. Every thread, every connection, wiped spotless. Nothing pointed back to him. The whole court was stuck. Even Prince Li Qiansheng looked anxious. He knew that targeting me was really targeting him. But he couldn't show emotion with the emperor watching. Then Governor Yao Tianjing stepped forward. Your Majesty, I have something to say. He started talking, and at first it sounded like rambling. He mentioned how he'd recommended me, how he'd been the prince's grand tutor since the 2nd year of the emperor's reign, and how back then Wei Xian used to work in the Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Rights, even serving as examiner for the first imperial exams. Everyone was confused. What did any of this have to do with the case? Wei Xian stepped out looking annoyed. Governor Yao, we're investigating a crime here. Save the reminiscing for another day, Yao laughed. Who said this has nothing to do with the case? Then his face turned serious. If I remember correctly, you, Minister Wei, were not only Lu San's examination master who placed him on the official register, but also his former direct superior. And though you claim no close ties these days, you've been exchanging letters constantly. Shall I help investigate that? It was like lightning struck the hall. Every eye turned to Wei Xian. Suddenly Yao's rambling made perfect sense. By mentioning that he recommended me and that he's the prince's protector, he was establishing that all the attacks on me were really aimed at the crown prince, meant to cut off his support. That was the motive. And as for the suspect, Lu San's former boss, former examiner, and longtime pen pal, Wei Xian. Even the prince and Prime Minister Lin turned suspicious eyes toward Wei Xian. Wei Xian fought back, voice raised. Don't slander me. Lu San and I only had normal professional correspondence. False accusations are a serious crime in Dakian. Yao just laughed. Calm down, Minister Wei. I'm simply pointing out a lead for Inspector Xiong to follow. How is that slander? Wei Xian was trapped, couldn't argue without looking guilty. Yao bowed to the emperor and said his piece was done. The emperor waved it off casually. Wei Xian immediately dropped to his knees, crying that he was innocent. I held my breath, waiting for the emperor to press the investigation. But he didn't. He just said, Minister Wei has served greatly. I trust him. Rise. I was stunned. Why stop here? Yao had laid it out so clearly. What was the emperor thinking? Then he gave Xiong 10 more days to wrap up the investigation. Xiong accepted, looking grim. And then, out of nowhere, the emperor looked at me. Sun Jian, I hear you have military talent and martial skill. Starting tomorrow, you'll also serve as deputy commander of the Tiger Guard Battalion. Wait, what? We were just talking about assassination plots, and suddenly he's promoting me? Was I supposed to go to the Eastern Palace or train soldiers at the Tiger Guard camp? What was happening? Congratulations, Sir Sun. Quick, accept the decree. Fu Hui and Li Hongji nudged me back to reality. I dropped to my knees fast. I accept the decree. Thank you, Your Majesty. The emperor nodded, satisfied, and glanced at Wang De, who immediately called out. If there are no further matters, court is dismissed. Nobody dared say another word. The whole court had just watched a chess match they couldn't fully understand, and no one wanted to be the next piece on the board. Court ended with Wang De's announcement. The emperor stepped down from his throne and headed to the side chamber without another word. I stood there still trying to figure out what he was thinking. Officials filed past me, many offering congratulations. Getting promoted to deputy commander of the Tiger Guard Battalion, this quickly was unprecedented. Everyone could see the emperor favored me. As long as I survived the current storms, my future in court would be limitless. When the second prince walked by with Prime Minister Lin and Wei Xian, all I got was a cold snort. Soon only Xiong Jujing, Governor Yao, and Prince Li Qianqing remained. Xiong congratulated me awkwardly. He was embarrassed about not finding the mastermind, then left after some small talk. Governor Yao walked up and patted my shoulder. I got your letter. Bring the prince to my old residence in the capital tomorrow at noon. Then he turned and left without looking back. That left just me and the prince, staring at each other in silence. We walked out together, both deep in thought. Li Qianqing broke first. What do you think my father meant by all that? I gave him a look. You're asking me? He's your dad, not mine. I'd been racking my brain the whole way and still had no clue. The prince kept muttering to himself. Father says he trusts Wei Xian in front of everyone, then tells Xiong the case has major holes. Then he drops the investigation and randomly promotes you to the Tiger Guard? None of it makes sense. I was getting a headache. Your Highness, please stop. Governor Yao invited us tomorrow. Let the old fox analyze this. He probably understands the emperor's thinking. Better than us killing brain cells over it. Old fox? Brain cells? He looked confused again. I had to explain that old fox meant someone experienced and savvy, and brain cells just meant overthinking. He laughed and pointed at me. You dare call the Grand Tutor an old fox? We both cracked up, and the heavy mood lifted instantly. He agreed. Governor Yao probably had answers for us. For a moment, I felt sorry for the prince. Lost his mother young, no one to protect him, made crown prince as a child with no real childhood. Surrounded by enemies. One wrong step, and he'd fall into the abyss. The emperor trusted him, but trust alone couldn't protect him in court politics, especially in an era of war and chaos where even the empire itself was shaky. I watched his thin frame walking ahead of me, feeling genuinely moved. But that sympathy lasted about 60 seconds. As we neared the palace exit, the prince started walking faster, eyes darting left and right like a thief. The moment we passed through the east gate, he sprinted straight toward old Zhang's carriage. Your Highness, that's not your carriage. Old Zhang was waiting for me on the cart. When he heard me yell, Your Highness, he nearly fell off and dropped to his knees. The prince used that moment to dive into the carriage. I helped old Zhang up, made a shoo gesture, and climbed in after the prince. He was beaming with excitement. I was not. Your Highness, I can't explain this to anyone if we get caught. Are we friends or not? Yes, but we're also lord and subject. Then stop talking and tell your man to drive. Drive where? Anywhere. I'm not going back to class this afternoon. Show me around the capital. I rubbed my forehead. Your Highness, I have things to do this afternoon. Wang De might come to my house with an official decree. I can't take you out. If you go missing, the whole capital panics. I can't handle that responsibility, he argued back. Last time I snuck off to Hongnong for 3 days and nothing happened, remember? Little Jinzi will cover for me at the Eastern Palace. It'll be fine, but when I tried to argue more, Li Qianqing put on his serious face. Sun Jian, are you disobeying my royal command? That was that. Can't fight the crown prince. I opened the curtain and told old Jiang to drive. Poor old Jiang was shaking. First time being this close to the heir to the throne. Where to? He stammered. Where do you think? Should I take the prince to a brothel? Home. Where else do I have to go? Old Jiang calmed down after being yelled at and whipped the horses forward. The prince was grinning like a kid skipping school. I couldn't help laughing too. I've barely ever left the palace, he told me. That time in Hongnong was only the third time I'd ever snuck out. And you went to a brothel? I said. His face turned red, and he slapped his hand over my mouth. Only you, me, and Lu Jin know about that. Never mention it again, I nodded. But then he brought it up again. That medicine you gave me. I tried it one more time. It really works. Incredible stuff. I stared at him. He just told me to stop talking about it, and now he's the one going on about it. And wait, he tried it again? He doesn't have a wife or a concubine. Did he sneak back to that pleasure house? This kid's got a real problem. Emperor, this is what happens when you don't arrange your son's marriage. I warned him again. 1 pill maximum. Don't take them often. He waved me off and asked if I could make more. I hesitated. My system had unbound Qingqing and Zijian, so future points could only come from Wanner and Princess Changle. If the prince wanted more of those pills, well, I'd basically need to get closer to his sister. I kept that thought to myself. It's complicated to produce, I said. I had a bunch, but I gave them all to the emperor. His eyes nearly popped out. Father takes them too? Yeah. The day after we had drinks at the inn, I didn't mention the deluxe gift set of adult toys I'd included. His whole family was using up my inventory. If I ever needed some myself, I'd have to spend points to get more. The prince swallowed hard. Let's never bring this up again, agreed. After an awkward silence, he sighed and changed the subject to serious matters. Disaster reports from various provinces, refugees, border wars at a standstill. His father was losing sleep over it all. I was actually impressed that he worried about the country's problems instead of his own dangerous position. But I had to redirect him. Your Highness, aren't you concerned about your own situation? Of course I am, he said, spreading his hands. I'm anxious every day. His expression darkened. We were both smart enough to know what the real threat was. Wei Xian's faction targeting him, possibly with the second prince involved. Does the emperor not see the factional fighting? I complained. The second prince is obviously scheming. I've only met him once, and even I could tell. Why does the emperor keep him in the capital? I don't know, he sighed. I can never read father's mind. Old Jiang pulled up to the side gate of my mansion. Smart man. He knew to avoid the front entrance with the crown prince inside. We're here, Your Highness. I reached to open the curtain for him, but he wouldn't move. Actually, you go ahead. I'll just wander around the capital for a bit. And where exactly will you go? Just around. I've never really explored the capital. Every time I snuck out before, I stayed away from the city. My face went dark. Absolutely not. Look at what you're wearing. Everyone will recognize you. If something happens, my entire clan gets wiped out. Just lend me some of your clothes, and I'll go out for a bit. I'll be back soon, the prince begged. I wasn't having it. Letting him come to my house was already my biggest compromise. This wasn't some safe modern era. If anything happened to the crown prince on my watch, my whole family was done for. No way. He pulled the royal authority card again. I stood firm, but offered a deal. I'll take you around the capital next time. But today we just left court. We're still in our court clothes, and we have no guards. It's too dangerous. With you here, who needs guards? You broke Li Mu's rib. Barely anyone in Dakian could beat you. Your Highness, protecting you and sparring are two different things. If 100 arrows come flying at us, I can't shield you. He finally gave in, but made me promise. Next time for sure. I agreed. He pointed out that I'd probably be heading to the Tiger Guard Battalion in 2 days, so, next time, better not be some empty promise. I swore I'd take him out properly after I got back from the military camp. He let me help him down from the carriage, and we entered through the side gate. Old Jiang had been smart about using the back entrance for deliveries, so the path was discreet. When the prince saw my courtyard garden, his eyes lit up. He'd never seen anything like what I was growing. What are all these? I walked him through. Tomatoes, winter melon, zucchini. Each one nutritious and delicious. He was amazed. How did you even discover these things? Wild seeds? Foreign imports? I scratched my head. I hated answering that question. Luckily, he didn't push it, just shook his head in wonder. But where are the potatoes? Everyone at court's been talking about them. Hey, stop stomping through my seedlings. I had to pull him out of the garden. The potatoes aren't planted yet. I haven't had enough workers. But I brought some from Sun Family Village. Want to try them? I'll have the kitchen cook some up. He was thrilled. I gave old Jiang a look, and he scurried off to the kitchen. The prince told me the whole court was buzzing about the potatoes. Officials were split into two camps. Some thought I'd fake the yield numbers. Others doubted potatoes could even serve as real food. That's why nobody at the morning assembly had asked me about them directly. They were more curious about my poem and my fight with Li Mu. Your father believes you, though, he added. He blocked a lot of those critical reports. He even placed you in this neighborhood because it's close to the imperial farm. If those potatoes really perform like the rumors say, you'll have saved millions of people. The food crisis, the population problem, all of it could be solved. I nodded. I already knew all of this. In an era without technology, food was everything. It determined population, stability, and national strength. So your super potato really works like you said? Yes. He got even more excited. You really are heaven sent. Poetry, medicine, military strategy, martial arts, inventions, farming. Is there anything you can't do? Your Highness, please stop teasing me. Let's go to the study. The tea should be ready. We sat down for a chat. I thought about opening a bottle of Forget Your Sorrows Valley for him, but decided against it. He was here secretly. If he got drunk, I'd have no idea how to handle that situation. After a while, old Jiang brought in the freshly steamed potatoes. The prince took a few bites of the steamed potato, and his eyes went wide. He practically shouted that it was delicious, nearly swallowed his own tongue. Coming from someone who'd eaten the finest royal cuisine his entire life, that was high praise. My 3 wives heard I was back and came running to find me, but old Jiang stopped them at the door and whispered that the crown prince was inside. Qing Cheng and Zijian were happy for me, impressed that I had such a close relationship with the heir to the throne. Only Wanner pouted and muttered, "So what? Big deal." Qingqing quickly pulled her away before she said anything worse. When afternoon came, I had too much to deal with, so I wrapped things up with the prince, promised him again I'd take him around the city next time, and had old Jiang and old Chao escort him safely back to the Eastern Palace. I didn't relax until they came back and confirmed he'd made it inside. Finally got rid of that royal handful. Back in the study, old Jiang nervously asked if the prince had found out about our workshop business. He and old Chao both looked worried. They thought the royal family was going to swoop in and take over our money-making operation. I rolled my eyes. He just wanted some fresh air. He only asked about when we're planting potatoes. He doesn't know anything about the business. They immediately brightened up. Old Chao scratched his head and said it was better the royals didn't know. At the rate we were making money, we'd probably be earning more per month than the country collected in annual taxes. The palace would definitely want a piece of that. Old Jiang suggested we hold off on finding our shield and just make money quietly for a few months first. I shut them both down. Even if the royal family gets involved, I'll make sure this business stays in our hands. Trust me. Their eyes lit up. They never doubted me anymore. They figured following me was the luckiest thing that ever happened to them. Then we got down to business. Old Jiang reported that we'd hired 20 young workers for the shops, 1 meal a day and 3 copper coins per shift, paid monthly. He handed me a detailed list of every worker, where they lived, family background, work history, all verified. He'd even written out procedures for managing them and protecting the stores. I was impressed. He'd learned all this helping his uncle back in Hongnon County. Old Chao showed me property deeds. We now had 3 shops open in the capital, with 2 more launching tomorrow. With the new hires handling sales and deliveries, our village workers could focus entirely on production. Output had jumped to 450 pounds of refined salt and 300 pounds of Forget Your Sorrows Valley per day. Everything sold out the moment it hit the shelves. Daily profit, over 3,400 taels of silver. 3 for 100? Even I was shocked. At that rate, I'd be richer than the entire nation before long. A regular horse cost less than 5 taels. A good Turkic war horse was under 10. With 3,400 taels a day, I could build a fully equipped private army in about a month. Old Chao clarified that was tomorrow's projected number. Today we'd only sold 100 pounds of salt and 50 pounds of liquor since it was morning only, so today's take was around 600 taels. Still not bad. He handed me the account books, every transaction recorded down to the last copper coin. The handwriting was ugly, but the bookkeeping was flawless. Then I noticed something unexpected in the property deeds. Wait, You bought a huge piece of land on Lishan Mountain outside the city. Old Chow explained he'd picked that land for the new workshop site I'd mentioned. I looked at the deed again and nearly choked. 300 acres of flat land for just over 300 taels of silver? That was basically free. A tiny shop in the capital cost over 100 taels, and this guy got 300 acres for the same price as 3 shops. I seriously wondered if he'd been scammed. But I checked everything twice. The documents and land deeds were all officially issued by the government. Completely legit. Old Chow grinned and explained. The land was on the backside of Lishan Mountain, mostly hard rocky soil. Almost no people around, too far out for farming. Nobody wanted it. The sellers practically begged him to take it. And that's not all, he added. The 300 acres is just the flat part. The hillside land came free. About 600 more acres. I nearly inhaled my own tongue. Almost 1,000 acres total for 300 taels. You could build a small city on that much land, let alone a workshop. I gave Old Chow a big thumbs up. The man was a genius negotiator. I told him to start construction whenever he had time, then asked if there was anything else. Old Jiang mentioned he hadn't gotten around to hiring household servants yet since he'd been driving me around all day. I told him to handle it tomorrow. After they left, I was about to rest and then ask Zijian about the Tiger Guard battalion. But before I could even lie down properly, all 3 of my wives walked in. Are you tired today, husband? I sat up quickly. Actually, I was just about to come find you 3. Warner spoke first. We want to find you too. We're bored out of our minds. Everyone in the house is busy except us. We want something to do, that's it. It's a big deal. And just so you know, I'm not doing any heavy or dirty work. Warner crossed her arms. I smiled. Give it a few days. I have a feeling there'll be plenty for you to help with soon. Then I turned to Zijian. What do you know about the Tiger Guard battalion? All 3 of them froze. Everyone knew about the Tiger Guard. It was one of the 2 elite armies protecting the capital, directly under the emperor's command. Even Warner, a princess from an enemy nation, had heard of them. Why are you asking? Zijian said cautiously. Because as of today, your husband is the new deputy commander of the Tiger Guard battalion. Their jaws dropped. I'd only attended my first court session today and already got promoted to deputy commander of an imperial army. This kind of favor was practically unheard of in any dynasty. Zijian figured it was because of my fighting skills and the bandit story spreading everywhere. Qingcheng added another theory. Since the Tiger Guard was the emperor's own force, he was probably building a loyal military team around the crown prince, and putting me in charge was part of that plan. Warner just pouted quietly. I could tell she wasn't impressed. Knowing her, she was probably thinking something like, big deal. If you came back to Great Zhou with me, my father would give you command of the entire Imperial Guard. Nobody noticed her sulking, though. We were all too busy trying to figure out what this promotion really meant. Zijian noticed I didn't look happy about the promotion and asked what was bothering me. I sighed and told all 3 of them what happened in court. The investigation hitting dead ends, the emperor suddenly declaring trust in Wei Xian, then randomly making me deputy commander of the Tiger Guard. I asked Zijian to tell me everything she knew about the Tiger Guard, since she came from a military family. She explained that the capital had 3 military forces. Inside the city were the left and right armed guard armies, protecting the east and west sides. Her father had been the left armed guard general. Outside the city were 2 elite camps, the Dragon Pride Battalion to the northeast and the Tiger Guard Battalion to the southeast, each about 100 kilometers from the capital, forming a defensive triangle. All 3 forces answered directly to the emperor. Not even princes could command them. I also learned that the Golden Guard, Li Yu and Li Mu's unit, was separate. They were the emperor's personal bodyguards protecting the palace itself, not the city. The Tiger Guard was serious business. 30,000 elite soldiers, 5,000 heavy infantry, 5,000 spearmen, 10,000 heavy cavalry, and 10,000 archers. Every single one handpicked from across the military, all battle-hardened veterans. As deputy commander, I'd be second in charge of all of them. Impressive, but I still couldn't figure out why the emperor did this. Then Qingqing spoke up. Husband, what if the emperor is killing 3 birds with 1 stone? That got everyone's attention. She laid it out. The emperor says he trusts Wei Xian, but then tells Xiong to keep investigating. That's contradictory on purpose. He doesn't want to alert Wei Xian. He wants to slowly strip away Wei Xian's power, pull the fangs from the snake before striking. It hit me like a thunderbolt. I jumped in and started connecting the dots. He's telling me there are Wei Xian's people inside the Tiger Guard, maybe even evidence of his crimes. Instead of banging our heads against dead witnesses and cold trails, we go after his network. Dismantle his loyalists, strip his military and political power, then you don't even need evidence to finish him, Qingqing continued. And once you take control of the Tiger Guard, the prince has real military backing. Your Highness's position is secured. Then as you gain merit cleaning house, you build your own political and military power, which strengthens the prince's faction and breaks up the court's factional fighting. Building the road in plain sight, while sneaking through the back passage, I exclaimed. 3 birds with 1 stone. That crafty old emperor really was something else. I was genuinely grateful to Qingqing in that moment. Without her analysis, I'd have been scratching my head for days. I married well. She always had a way of lighting up the path when I was stuck in the dark. I asked Zijian if she remembered any names of Tiger Guard officers, the commander, the generals, the colonels. Unfortunately, she'd grown up training in martial arts, not politics. Being a woman, she'd never been involved in court affairs and couldn't remember many specifics. Zijian couldn't remember much about the Tiger Guard officers anyway. It had been years since her father was alive, and she'd never had direct contact with those people. Wana rolled her eyes at me. Why are you asking, Zijian? You said yourself the imperial decree is coming. The eunuch delivering it will obviously bring the military roster with him. I slapped my thigh. She was right. How did I not think of that? Was I getting dumber lately? A teenage girl was outsmarting me. I pinched her cheek and told her she was clever. She blushed and swatted my hand away, acting all shy. Qingqing and Zijian covered their mouths laughing. Wana used to always snap back with, "Who's your anything?" But now she was acting like a tame little kitten. Before I could enjoy the moment longer, knocking came from the study door. It was Tai Dan, the villager I'd posted at the front gate after he hurt his arm during the assassin attack. He came running in, sweating and panting, to tell me a whole group of palace eunuchs were standing in the front courtyard with trays full of stuff, armor, weapons, documents. The imperial decree had arrived. I told the girls I'd go receive it and headed to the front yard. It was the same old eunuch from the imperial household, Eunuch Su, who'd delivered my court robes last time. But this time the show was way bigger. Dozens of young eunuchs stood behind him, each holding purple wooden trays loaded with a helmet, armor, battle boots, a belt, a sword, an official seal, command tokens, and appointment documents. Everything I needed. Greetings, Sir Sun. The old eunuch bowed deeply. I could tell he was even more respectful than last time. He'd been in service for years and had never seen anyone promoted this fast. A few days ago, I was nobody. Now I held 2 prestigious positions, Imperial Reader and Tiger Guard Deputy Commander. He said even Prime Minister Lin hadn't received this kind of imperial favor. Sir Sun, your future is truly limitless. It's an honor for this old servant to deliver your appointment. I smiled and played humble, but honestly, the flattery felt pretty good. Then I pulled out a tin-tail banknote and slipped it into his palm while stepping aside for a private word. He glanced around nervously, checking that his junior eunuchs all had their heads down, then did the standard fake refusal routine. Sir Sun, this isn't proper, I couldn't possibly. Meanwhile, he was already peeking at the amount on the note and running his pinky finger over the raised print to check if it was real. The old fox thought I couldn't see that. I kept insisting. Eunuch Su, you're the elder here, and you've been running back and forth on my behalf. Please accept this small token of respect. Well, if you insist. How embarrassing. 10 taels was no small amount in this era. It could buy a quality war horse. The purchasing power was probably equivalent to around 10,000 yuan from my previous life. Those old TV dramas where people tossed around millions of taels like nothing? Complete nonsense. Reality was very different. Eunuch Su finally pocketed the banknote with a shy smile. I don't usually like bribing people. Honestly, I find it disgusting. But today was different. I needed information about the Tiger Guard from this old palace veteran who'd been delivering imperial decrees for years. After some more back-and-forth pleasantries, he got down to business. He walked to the center of his entourage, took the imperial scroll from a junior eunuch, and read it aloud. Basically, it praised my martial talent and strategic mind, then formally appointed me deputy commander of the Tiger Guard Battalion. I accepted the decree, then brought everyone inside to inventory the goods. 4 sets of clothing, 1 light armor, 1 heavy armor, 2 official uniforms. My start date was the day after tomorrow. Duties, drilling troops, and managing military affairs. Sue handed me the name roster, command token, and the deputy commander's gold seal. This roster contains all soldiers ranked centurion and above, 326 men total. Also, the Tiger Guard deputy commander is a 4th-rank military position, answering directly to the Emperor, not the Ministry of War. 4th rank? Just like that? I went from having no rank at all to 4th rank overnight. No wonder all those officials congratulated me so eagerly. Sue noticed my surprise and clarified something I didn't know. Military ranks only had 12 grades, not 18 like civilian ones. The lowest military rank was 6th grade, so my 4th rank was actually just middle of the pack, barely above the bottom tier. He explained the hierarchy. 1st rank was Grand General, equal to the 3 dukes. Only one person held that title, Old General Yu, currently fighting at the border. I'd heard of him, but never met him. I asked about Governor Yao's rank. Sue's face turned respectful. Governor Yao is a deputy 1st-rank Grand Cavalry General and simultaneously a 2nd-rank civilian official, so Yao was the 2nd-highest military figure in all of Dakian. Impressive. Sue offered to bring me reference books on military ranks from the imperial household. Free knowledge? Absolutely, I'll take it. Then I noticed something missing while examining my new gear. No military tally, the token needed to actually command troops. Where's the military tally? Sue looked at me awkwardly. Sir son, only the Emperor and the Chief Commander hold the Tiger Guard tally. As Deputy Commander, you cannot possess one. Doing so would be considered treason. Fine. No tally then. I wasn't going to refuse the appointment over a technicality. Once I'd buttered Sue up enough, I leaned in close and glanced at the junior eunuchs still standing around. He caught my meaning instantly, coughed, and dismissed them all, saying he needed to brief me on detailed responsibilities privately. After they filed out, I got straight to the point. Eunuch Sue, you've served in the imperial household for years. You've delivered decrees to every corner of this government. You know everyone and everything. He straightened up, listening carefully. I need to know, who is the current chief commander of the Tiger Guard? What's his background? And what are his interests? Eunuch Sue paused for a moment, then told me straight. The Tiger Guard chief commander is Wei Zhongyi, the nephew of Minister of War Wei Xian. He's 38 years old. My heart jumped. Just as I suspected. The Tiger Guard was connected to that old bastard Wei Xian. The Emperor's plan was exactly what Qin Sheng and I figured. He wanted me to find a way to push Wei Zhongyi out, pull the fangs from the snake, and put the Tiger Guard's military power back into the prince's hands. Sue continued. Wei Zhongyi was a former martial arts champion, a skilled fighter with plenty of battlefield achievements. Combined with his uncle's influence, he'd climbed from colonel to chief commander in just a few years. I flipped through the roster and asked about the 3 lieutenant generals. The names hit me like a brick. Wei Zhongbao, Wei Zhonghu, and Lu Shiyun. 2 more Weiss. The Tiger Guard was basically the Wei family's private army, and their naming taste was something else. Crocodile, leopard, tiger. Did this family just love naming their kids after animals? Sue explained. Wei Zhongbao commanded the cavalry. Wei Zhonghu commanded the infantry. Both were Wei Zhongyi's cousins. As for Lu Shiyun, he was promoted from the front lines back in the 7th year of the emperor's reign, recommended by Governor Yao after a campaign against barbarian tribes. Governor Yao's man. Inside the Wei-controlled Tiger Guard? Suddenly, everything clicked. That's why Yao specifically told me and the prince to visit his residence tomorrow. He was going to bring up Lu Shiyun. These old foxes had already figured out the emperor's entire plan while I was still scratching my head in court. I glanced at Lu Shiyun's entry in the roster. I bet this General Lu doesn't have an easy time in the Tiger Guard, does he? Sue looked confused. He figured fellow commanders would get along fine. I laughed it off, just guessing. 3 Weiss and 1 outsider. Can't be comfortable. I didn't explain further, but the political map was now clear in my head. Wei Xian and Governor Yao were rival factions. Yao was the prince's protector, so he was in our camp. Wei Xian appeared neutral, but was obviously backing the second prince. Lu Shiyun, as Yao's man surrounded by Wei loyalists, was definitely being squeezed. Then Sue surprised me by lowering his voice. Sir son, I can guess why you're asking me these things. I blinked. Everyone in court knows about you now. The assassination, the framing, The rumors all point to Minister Wei. Even this old palace eunuch knew? The information network in this capital was terrifying. He asked if I had a grudge with the Wei family. I admitted I probably did. The Hongkong governor who'd been thrown in prison was connected to the Weiss, and they'd taken plenty of heat for it. Sue leaned in closer. I took your money, so I'll give you honest advice. The Wei family is the second most powerful noble clan in Dakian. They have deep roots, wide branches, and loyalists everywhere, not just in the Tiger Guard. If they haven't come after you recently, let it go. Make peace. I smiled coldly inside. They weren't lying low because they'd given up. They were waiting because Xiong's investigation had them pinned. The moment that pressure lifted, they'd come at me with everything they had. But I thanked Sue politely. He'd given me incredibly useful information today. Money well spent. He kept going, trying to convince me to stay out of trouble. Then he switched to flattering my poem, saying scholars across the empire had ranked Water Melody as the greatest lyric poem ever written. What did they say? I asked, not sure I wanted to know. Sue puffed up proudly. The scholars have declared you a heaven-sent genius, the saint of poetry. What? I copied one poem, and I'm the poetry saint. I was floored. In my previous life, Du Fu wrote hundreds of poems over a lifetime to earn that title. I plagiarized one and got the same honor. Sue explained that Dakian had been militarily strong but culturally weak since its founding 11 years ago. Neighboring kingdoms had been mocking us as uncivilized barbarians, which the emperor deeply resented. So when my poem appeared, the literary community went wild, and the emperor apparently helped fan the flames on purpose. He wanted a cultural champion, and I accidentally became one. So if you don't want to be a warrior, you could just be a scholar and still go down in history, Sue concluded. No need to make enemies of the Wei family. I thanked him for the advice. Whatever his motives, he'd given me incredibly useful information today. That 10-tael banknote was well spent. After Sue left, I rushed back to the reception hall to play with my new gear. The battlefield had always been my dream. Military power was the ultimate power. With it, I could protect everyone I cared about. I put on the silver-white armor, the golden crown helmet, and gripped the ceremonial sword. When my 3 wives walked in and saw me, their eyes lit up like lanterns. Zijian's eyes actually got misty. She ran over and threw herself into my arms. You look like a god of war descended from heaven. The system chimed. Wanner's affection 3. Current value, 42. Qingcheng and Wanner came closer too, faces flushed, looking at me with pure admiration. All right, help me take this armor off. It's easier to put on than remove. What surprised me was that Wanner didn't refuse. She blushed but stepped right up alongside the other 2 to help with the buckles and straps. Even Qingcheng and Zijian exchanged a surprised glance. Removing a man's armor together was an intimate act. You wouldn't do it unless you really cared. But with 41 affection points, Wanner would probably walk through fire for me at this point. I'd pretty much figured out how the system scale worked. 10 points was a crush. 20 was love. 30 was, I'll never forget you even if we're apart. 40 and above? That person would give their life for you without hesitation. Standing so close to all 3 of them, breathing in their different scents, my mind started wandering to certain comparisons. My brain started ranking things it had no business ranking. Then I started imagining all 3 of them together tonight, and couldn't help grinning like an idiot. Husband, what are you smiling about? Qingqing caught my creepy expression and gave me a look. I coughed awkwardly and touched my nose. Nothing at all. Qingcheng caught me grinning like a fool, and the other 2 stopped helping with my armor to stare at me. Nothing. Just thinking about something nice. Wanner's face went red. She figured out exactly what I was thinking, dropped her hands, and stepped back. You're obviously having dirty thoughts. Take it off yourself. She pulled Qingcheng and Zijian away with her. I was left to wrestle with the remaining buckles alone. I made a mental note. Once things settled down, I'd find a chance to get all 3 of them drunk on Forget Your Sorrows Valley. And then, just as I finished removing the last piece of armor, Taidan came bursting into the hall, trembling and out of breath. Sir, soldiers, a whole army is heading this way. My heart dropped. The girls tensed up immediately. Slow down. What happened? He explained that after walking eunuch Su to the intersection, he saw a large group of armed soldiers in full armor marching toward our street. He heard the lead soldier ask a street vendor where the Sun residence was. Then he ran home as fast as he could. I went into emergency mode. Dan, run to the back courtyard. Tell old Jiang and old Chow to shut down the workshop and hide everything. If trouble starts up front, everyone evacuates out the back. Then I turn to Zijian. Take Qing Chung and Wanner to the back. If things go bad, get out. What about you? All three of them asked. I don't know what these people want yet. If we all run to the back, nobody escapes. Go now. Zijian wanted to stay and fight beside me. Wanner grabbed her arm. I raised my voice. Qing and Wanner can't fight. You have to protect them. Don't make me yell. Move. Before they could argue more, heavy footsteps filled the front courtyard. They were already here. I signaled the girls to wait inside and walked out alone. The moment I stepped into the yard, I wanted to strangle Dan. These weren't random soldiers coming to cause trouble. They were the Imperial Left Guard, the Emperor's own protective force. Their armor and uniforms made it obvious. The Left Guard answered directly to the Emperor. Not the Second Prince, not Prime Minister Lin, not even Wei Xian could command these troops. This wasn't an attack. I'm Sun Jian, I said, stepping forward with a fist salute. The commanding officer was a massive guy, tall, broad-shouldered, with thick eyebrows and a wide face. He looked me over once, then dropped to one knee with his fists raised. Lieutenant Gu Hu of the Imperial Left Guard, reporting with 500 armored soldiers to serve Sir Sun. Behind him, every single soldier, all 500 plus more at the gate, dropped to one knee in unison and roared, reporting to Sr. Sun. The sound shook the entire mansion. I stood there completely stunned. They weren't here to arrest me. They were here to serve me. What? What is this? By imperial decree, I am Gu Hu, cavalry colonel of the Left Guard. I've been ordered to report to you with 500 guard soldiers. And just like that, it all made sense. It hit me. The Emperor had promised to send people to help plant potatoes on the imperial farm nearby. These were those people. I wanted to scream. These idiots showed up in full battle armor with swords drawn, 500 of them marching through the streets asking for my house. They looked like they were coming to raid my home. Nearly gave me a heart attack. You said the Emperor sent you? I asked, barely holding back my anger. Yes, sir. Your name is Gu Hu? Yes, sir. Well, you really are a tiger, I said. It was a pun. Hu means tiger, but I also meant he was recklessly bold. He completely missed the joke and thanked me for the compliment, saying his late general gave him the name. Confirmed, this guy was an idiot. I looked at the 500 soldiers kneeling across my courtyard and doorway. How long are you planning to kneel there? He explained that according to the imperial decree, he and all 500 soldiers were now under my command. My word was military law. They couldn't stand until I told them to. Interesting. The Emperor's timing was no coincidence. He'd promised me these troops ages ago, but waited until the exact day before I started at the Tiger Guard to send them. He knew I'd need loyal manpower going into a den of Wei family wolves. This had been planned from the beginning. My anger faded. Fine. Everyone get up. 500 voices boomed in unison. Thank you, Sir. Meanwhile, the girls had been hiding inside, terrified. After hearing my conversation, they relaxed, except Zijian. Through the window, she saw something that made her entire body tremble. She walked out like she was in a trance, ignoring Qingqing and Wanner calling after her. When she appeared in the courtyard and saw Gu Hu, tears filled her eyes. Gu Hu. He looked up and his jaw dropped. Young miss. You're alive? He crashed to one knee. Gu Hu greets the young miss. All 500 soldiers followed, kneeling again. Greetings to the young miss. Zijian stood there crying silently. These were her father's old soldiers. Some had even been servants and retainers of the Gu family before everything fell apart. I pulled her into my arms and held her. Are you okay? She wiped her tears. They were all my father's men. I understood completely. She'd lost her entire family. Suddenly finding her father's old soldiers alive. Of course, she'd break down. I sent Dan to tell old Jiang and old Chow it was a false alarm, then brought Gu Hu inside to talk. In the hall, I sat in the center with my 3 wives beside me. Gu Hu knelt again. I told him to stop kneeling and sit down, but he refused. The young miss is still standing. How could I sit? I had to get the girl seated first before he'd finally take a chair. I introduced him to everyone. When Qingqing and Wanner politely bowed to him, he panicked and threw himself on both knees to bow back. It took another round of, please stop kneeling, before we could actually have a conversation. He looked at Zijian with emotional eyes. I never thought I'd see the young miss again in this lifetime. Guhu was fighting back tears. We searched for you for half a year, young Mississippi. We thought you were dead. Zijian sighed and told him her whole story. Everyone finally heard the full picture. A year ago, her father Gu Yongchang, the left-armed guard general of the capital, was accused of secretly colluding with the great Zhou Empire. The charges came from Li Yigo, the Hongnon governor. The evidence looked solid and overwhelming. At the time, the emperor was away fighting the great Xia kingdom, leaving the prince to oversee the government with 4 regents. Wei Xian and Prime Minister Lin conspired together as regents and destroyed the Gu family before the prince even knew what happened. The family was branded as traitors and massacred. Zijian barely escaped with her life. When the emperor returned and found out, he was shocked, but it was already done. The evidence was too stacked to overturn. He showed mercy by not hunting down every last person. Some loyalists were exiled to the border instead of executed, and innocent servants were just demoted. Gu Hu had survived because he was away fighting alongside the emperor during the campaign. He never believed the treason charges and spent years trying to investigate, but he was powerless against the powerful ministers. He got demoted over and over until he bottomed out as a cavalry colonel. He'd been tracking down the exiled Gu family members, but most had died or disappeared. Zijian was the only survivor. She'd fled to the border, got captured, and disguised herself as a refugee war bride. Then she met me. Those bastards. Gu Hu's teeth were grinding. I've identified 3 of them, Li Yigo, Wei Xian, and Prime Minister Lin. At least that dog Li Yigo is already in prison waiting for execution. Zijian looked at me with grateful eyes, then asked Gu Hu, "Do you know who brought Li Yigo down?" He didn't. She just turned her gaze toward me. Gu Hu wasn't stupid. He connected the dots fast, then threw himself on the ground and started kowtowing. "Benefactor, thank you for avenging the Gu family. Please accept my deepest respects." I glanced at Zijian. In my head I was thinking, "Buddy, your young miss already thanked me plenty." But I couldn't say that out loud with Qingqing and Waner watching. "Get up, we're all family here." "No? What the young miss shares with you is family business. What I owe you is a debt of gratitude. This must be done properly." Stubborn as a mule, he finished his full ceremonial bows, then declared that he and all 1,000 of his soldiers would serve me for life, through fire, through blades, whatever I needed. Wait, 1,000? He only brought 500. He explained he commanded 1,000 left guard soldiers total as a cavalry colonel, but figured bringing all of them might cause too much commotion. Too much commotion? 500 armored soldiers nearly gave me a heart attack. This guy clearly grew up training his muscles instead of his brain. Still, his troops were all elite veterans, most of them originally from the Gu family army. They'd spent years being marginalized and sidelined because of the family's downfall. I patted his shoulder. "All right, enough catching up. Can't let you go hungry on our first meeting." I turned to Qingqing and told her to have old Jiang cook up a huge batch of potatoes, slaughter a pig, and make several big pots of food. I told Waner to have old Chow bring out all today's Forget Your Sorrows Valley production and buy more food and wine from town. I wanted to feast with the Gu family soldiers. I sent Gu Hu to bring the other 500 soldiers over too. After everyone left, it was just me and Zijian in the hall. She threw herself into my arms. She knew this feast wasn't really about introductions. It was for her dead father, for the Gu family, for this reunion. "Zijian, I promise you, whether it's Wei Xian or Prime Minister Lin, I'll make every one of them pay for what they did to your family." She trembled in my arms, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you, husband." Then she kissed me. Within 2 hours, my whole mansion was transformed. Pigs slaughtered, lamb roasting, like a holiday celebration. Gu Hu brought all 1,000 soldiers over, and they pitched in with the preparations. He introduced me to his 10 centurions along the way. Every one of them moved like trained fighters, with combat ratings of at least 68. I couldn't understand how they'd been stuck as mere centurions for years. My father-in-law Gu Yongchang must have been an incredible leader to inspire such loyalty. When the feast started, I sat at the head and raised my cup with everyone, villagers and soldiers alike. These were the first real troops I'd gained in this world. I needed to win their hearts. Brainwashing? That's my specialty. I gave a rousing speech that had half of them in tears, swearing to follow me to the death. Once I saw the effect was good enough, I told everyone to forget about duties and just drink until they dropped. When night fell, the soldiers planned to sleep in the courtyard. I refused. This mansion is your home now. What kind of family sleeps outside? I'd already had every spare room cleared out. Just enough space for everyone. Even Zijian teared up at that. The mansion was big enough. With some adjustments, housing 1,000 men wasn't a problem. I was already planning to buy surrounding properties to turn into proper barracks. That way, my home would be protected by an iron wall of soldiers, and they wouldn't have to commute. Nobody else in Dakian would dare privately house military troops like this, but I was the exception. The emperor himself had assigned them to me. I also realized I could recruit a separate batch of local militia on top of these soldiers, giving me 2 forces to call on. But I had to play it cool. The emperor wasn't naive. Getting too bold would only raise suspicion. One step at a time. The next morning, everything was back to business. Old Jiang and Goshing ran the workshop. Zijian helped me get ready. She told me Gu, who had already taken the soldiers for an early morning training run outside the city. Those military types really were built different. I needed old Chao to come with me to inspect the imperial farm, but Qingxing told me he'd left at dawn to negotiate buying the neighboring properties, following my orders from last night. The man was efficient. My 3 wives all wanted to come along. Warner was practically begging. She hadn't left the house in forever. I told them next time, after I got back from the military camp. They agreed without much fuss. Ancient women really were easy to manage. Just then, the sound of synchronized footsteps echoed through the yard. Guhu and his men were back from training. They all knelt the moment they saw me. I sighed, these guys and their formalities. I told Guhu to come with me to check out the imperial farm, since his troops would be the ones planting potatoes there anyway. He asked if we should bring soldiers along. No need. We're just scouting. A big group would attract unnecessary attention. Have the rest report to old Jiang in the back courtyard. He'll put them to work. Guhu followed my orders without question and sent the soldiers to help old Jiang. I was thrilled. 1,000 soldiers whose salaries were paid by the government, but I could use them however I wanted. Plus I got to collect their commander's stipend. What a deal. We grabbed 2 horses and headed toward the imperial farm. My mansion was in the northeast corner of the capital, not far from the farm, just past Changle Gate, and we'd practically be there. But when we reached the gate, some jerk blocked our path. The gate commander recognized Guhu immediately. Well, if it isn't Colonel Gu. Long time no see. He looked us both up and down with this smug, condescending sneer that made my skin crawl. The guy was big and muscular but had the face of a weasel, the type who bullies the weak and bows to the strong. I asked Guhu quietly if he knew this guy. His face darkened. Know him? We're old enemies. Great. The man, Commander Su Jiang from the Right Tiger Guard, was picking a fight on purpose. He demanded we show official travel documents and a road pass to leave the city. Guhu pushed back, pointing out that regular officials walk through these gates daily without any such paperwork. The rules about official documents only applied to military units traveling with troops, not 2 guys on horses. Su Jiang didn't care. He sneered and said since Guhu was technically a military officer, he needed the papers. When Guhu tried to argue, Su Jiang dropped the act completely. I finally caught you here. You think I'm letting you go? Guhu was furious but tried to stay calm. He suggested we just use a different gate. That made it worse. Su Jiang declared we couldn't leave at all now. He accused us of having no documents, claimed we might be enemy spies, and said he was going to search us under imperial law. Search us? I laughed coldly inside. Go ahead and try. Guhu's hand went to his sword. That was exactly what Su Jiang wanted. He'd been provoking us on purpose, waiting for someone to draw a weapon so he could cry assault. I reached over and pressed Guhu's hand down before he could unsheath the blade. I gave him a look that said, "Calm down, I'll handle this." But it was already too late to stop Su Jiang's performance. The moment he saw Guhu's hand touch the sword, he spun around and screamed at the top of his lungs. Guards! Someone's drawing a weapon. Assassination attempt. Su Jiang's shout brought a swarm of gate soldiers rushing over, even from the nearby barracks. He ordered us to dismount, thinking he had us cornered. I patted Guhu's shoulder to keep him calm, then swung off my horse. All right, I'm off the horse. Now what? Su Jiang declared that drawing a weapon against a capital gate commander was a serious crime. He never even bothered looking at me properly. He assumed I was just some nobody following Guhu around. Go ahead then, I said, scanning the circle of soldiers. Try to arrest me. All of you. Go on. They hesitated, glancing at each other, waiting for their boss to make the call. Su Jiang sneered at me. A little centurion dares talk big in front of me? You're asking to die. The last person who said that to me? The grass on his grave is already knee-high. I stared right back at him. He circled me like I was some zoo animal, looking me up and down. Kid's got guts, I'll give you that. But you don't know who you're dealing with. I'm Su Jiang, cavalry colonel of the Right Guard, commander of the East Gate. Okay. And his face twitched. He was used to people trembling at his title. My complete indifference was slapping him across the face. He tried offering me an out. Look, out of respect for your loyalty to Gu Hu, I'll let you go. We only want him. Get lost. What if I don't? You ungrateful little. He was losing it now. He turned to his soldiers and barked the order. These two forced their way through the gate and tried to stab a commander. Seize them. The soldiers moved forward. Gu Hu drew his saber, ready to fight to the death. But I raised my hand. Wait. Su Jiang's eyes lit up. He thought I was scared. This was even better. Humiliate me first, then arrest us. Too late to be afraid now, kid. He spread his legs wide and pointed at his crotch. I gave you a chance, and you didn't take it. Now if you want to leave, you crawl between my legs. On all fours, barking like a dog, his soldiers howled with laughter. Gu Hu's face went green with rage. He wanted to charge in swinging, but I held him back again. I told you, let me handle this. I walked forward and stopped about 6 feet from Su Jiang. He grinned wider and spread his legs even more. Come on, boy. Crawl through. Don't forget the barking. It doesn't count without the barking. My patience is limited. Keep stalling, and you won't even get the crawling option. The soldiers were practically rolling on the ground laughing. Look at him. All that bravery earlier was just an act. He's probably already wet himself. Now you know fear, kid. Remember, the Right Guard is not to be messed with. I just stood there, looking at this clown, saying nothing. You sure you want to do this? I asked one more time. Su Jiang's eyes bulged. I said my patience has a limit. I shrugged. Fine. Count to 3, and I'll start. He grinned and began counting. 3. Gu Hu panicked. Sir, you can't. Let me. I put a finger to my lips. Just watch. 2. Su Jiang was savoring this. His soldiers were buzzing with excitement, all waiting to see me crawl and bark. 1. The instant that word left his mouth, I exploded forward like lightning. Before anyone could blink, I launched off the ground, drove my knee straight into his jaw, and felt the bone crack on impact. As his body flew backward, I caught him with a full-force slap across the face that sent him crashing into the wall. I shook out my wrist and spat on the ground. Trash. Every soldier froze. Their brains couldn't process what just happened. Some nobody had just sent their commander flying with one hit. Gu Hu was stunned too. He'd watched the whole thing. The speed, the power, the precision. He could tell I was at least as skilled as he was. Relax, I didn't kill him, I said casually. That wouldn't be any fun. I'd used about 60% power on the knee and 80 on the slap. Su Jiang was tough enough to survive it. A few broken ribs, a ruptured eardrum, deaf in his right ear, and a face swollen like a balloon. But he'd live. After his soldiers helped him up, he screamed through the blood pouring from his mouth. Kill him. Kill him now. The soldiers surrounded me again. Some drew their swords. I calmly reached into my robe and pulled out my command token. I am Sun Jian, Deputy Commander of the Tiger Guard Battalion. I dare any of you to try. Dead silence. The soldiers looked at each other in shock. A few brave ones stepped closer to examine the token. It was genuine, the unmistakable seal of the Tiger Guard Deputy Commander. Even Gu Hu's jaw dropped. He had no idea about my appointment. He'd been so marginalized that news like this never reached him. The Tiger Guard was the Empire's most elite force. A deputy commander outranked a gate colonel by several levels. In modern terms, Su Jiang was maybe a battalion commander. I was a deputy corps commander. Not even their entire guard's commanding general would dare disrespect me. Don't recognize the Tiger Guard deputy commander's token. I raised my voice. The soldiers' faces drained of color. They dropped their weapons and fell to their knees one after another. Mercy, Commander. We didn't know. We were blind. Please forgive us. It was all Su Jiang. He forced us. They were begging, groveling, some even slapping their own faces. What a contrast to the laughter and mockery from minutes ago. A few soldiers still loyal to Su Jiang dragged him over. Even with a shattered jaw and a deaf ear, he refused to accept reality. He was convinced my token was fake. Su Jiang refused to believe I was the deputy commander. In his mind, anyone hanging around with a disgraced nobody like Gu who couldn't possibly hold such a high rank. The token might be real, but the person holding it had to be a fraud. Kill him, he screamed through the blood dripping from his mouth. I'll take full responsibility. A few of his loyal soldiers drew their swords and advanced toward me. I smiled coldly. Time to end this. Listen up. This whole mess started because Su Jiang abused his authority for a personal grudge. I am Sun Jian, Tiger Guard Deputy Commander and Imperial Reader to the Crown Prince, appointed by the Emperor himself. Drop your weapons and kneel now, and I won't hold any of you responsible. The name hit them like a thunderbolt. Sun Jian. Everyone in the capital knew that name. The poet behind, Water Melody, the genius doctor, the bandit slayer, the inventor, the man who beat the emperor's own bodyguard in a fight, the rumored heaven-sent prodigy who might solve the empire's food crisis. The soldiers who'd been charging at me stopped dead in their tracks. The ones already kneeling turned even paler. They'd been mocking and threatening the Sun Jian this whole time. Even Gu, who behind me, was stunned. He'd been so isolated that he'd barely heard the recent rumors. Now it all clicked. The legendary figure everyone was talking about was his benefactor. I walked past the frozen soldiers straight to Su Jiang. His face was ashen. What's wrong, General Su? Didn't you just tell me to take a good look at myself? Maybe you should take a look at yourself right now. He said nothing. The fear in his eyes was worse than any physical pain. I spread my legs apart and pointed down, copying his exact pose from earlier. Kneel. Bark like a dog. Crawl through. Then we're even. Everyone stared at Su Jiang, waiting. His face went dark. He stood there trembling, jaw clenched, weighing his options. If I was a fake, crawling would destroy his reputation forever. If I was real, he was already finished no matter what. Cornered animals bite. I saw the shift in his eyes a split second before he moved. His hand shot to his sword, and he slashed at my neck with everything he had. Fast, powerful, aimed to kill. Even Gu, who couldn't react in time from that distance. But I had 80 strength points and 70 agility. My body leaned back on pure instinct, and the blade whistled past my throat by inches. If I'd been even a heartbeat slower, my head would have been rolling on the ground. Su Jiang knew his sneak attack had failed. He didn't hesitate. He immediately swung the sword down at my skull for a second strike. That second slash was aimed right at my skull. I'd had enough. Go to hell. I kicked him square in the chest with 90% of my strength. The crack of his ribs breaking echoed across the gate. His body flew backward like he'd been hit by a truck, and his sword clattered to the ground. At least 3 ribs broken from that one kick. But the cockroach got back up. Blood pouring from his mouth, eyes bloodshot, he charged at me with his bare fists. In his mind, fighting was his only chance. Surrender meant certain death. I dodged his punch easily, then slapped him across the face again. 2 teeth went flying. He crashed 2 meters away and skidded across the ground. With 65 points of combat ability at best, this guy was all size and no skill. He didn't even know how to use his own strength properly. Desperate, Su Jiang screamed at his soldiers. He can't be the real deputy commander. Kill him. Kill him. Most of the soldiers stayed on their knees, pretending they didn't hear. But 5 or 6 of his loyal followers hesitated, then made up their minds. They were already in too deep. They'd mocked me, threatened me. If I was really Sun Jian, they were dead either way. Might as well fight. Want to join in? I cracked my neck. Come on then. All of you. I don't mind crippling the whole lot. Gu tensed up behind me. I told him to stay put. Just ants. Don't bother. They rushed me with drawn swords. I slipped between their strikes like a ghost, using 8 trigrams boxing. Fluid, precise, devastating. I wasn't holding back anymore. Every counterstrike targeted something vital. An arm here, a kneecap there. The sound of snapping bones came one after another. Within moments, all 6 were writhing on the ground, clutching their broken limbs and screaming. Then I went straight for Su Jiang. A punch to the gut doubled him over. I grabbed his collar, lifted him like a chicken, and slammed him against the city wall with my hand around his throat. A huge muscular man dangling in the air, held up by a lean young guy half his size. Anyone with martial arts training could see this wasn't ordinary strength. Thought you could kill me? The man who can kill me hasn't been born yet. His face turned purple. His eyes rolled back. Blood and foam dripped from his mouth. I tossed him aside like a deflated balloon. Think we're done? Not yet. I walked over and snapped both his arms with my bare hands. His scream could probably be heard across the entire district. Sorry, your legs too. I crushed both his shin bones under my foot. One final scream, then he passed out cold. Not dead, but barely alive. Just a breath left in him. That was exactly what I wanted. I'd considered killing him, but this was better. Death would be too quick and too merciful. Besides, I was the Tiger Guard deputy commander and the Crown Prince's imperial reader now. I couldn't just go around killing people for personal satisfaction and bring trouble to everyone behind me. Leaving him alive as a broken, crippled wreck sent a much stronger message. I spat on Su Jiang's crumpled body. That's what you get. You wanted me to crawl through your legs barking like a dog. Dream on. Now look who's drinking the punishment wine. I broke all 4 of your limbs, so you'll remember. Keep your eyes open next time you pick a fight. Oh wait, you probably won't be going anywhere anymore. I dusted off my hands and walked back. The remaining soldiers were shaking like leaves, kowtowing so hard their foreheads were probably bleeding, begging for mercy. I ignored them. Guhu rushed over, worried I might be hurt. I waved him off. Those losers couldn't even touch my sleeve. He knelt and apologized, blaming himself for causing this mess. I told him to get up. That guy deserved it. Consider it payback for everything he's done to you. Guhu warned me that gate guards were posted every 10 steps, with patrols every 100. It wouldn't be long before reinforcements arrived. He was right. I could already see them coming. 300 meters down the street, a large column of right guard soldiers was marching toward us, led by 3 officers on horseback. Up on the city wall, more troops were filing down the ramps headed our way. Guhu's face went white. If these newcomers were anything like Su Jiang, we'd be seriously outnumbered. Hundreds of armed soldiers against 2 men. Even I couldn't handle that. I could see him mentally preparing to die protecting me. The troops arrived and surveyed the scene. Soldiers groaning on the ground with broken limbs. Su Jiang unconscious in a pool of blood with all 4 limbs twisted at wrong angles. A group of soldiers kneeling and begging. And then me and Guhu, standing there perfectly fine. Not a scratch on either of us. The lead officer ordered the wounded evacuated to a medical station immediately. When his men reported that Su Jiang was barely alive with all 4 limbs snapped, his face turned dark as storm clouds. He ordered them to save Su Jiang's life at all costs. Then he turned his attention our way, but instead of addressing me, he asked the kneeling soldiers what happened. Guhu leaned in and whispered, "That's Su Hai, Right Guard Lieutenant General. Su Jiang's cousin and direct superior." The implication was obvious. I'd nearly killed his cousin and crippled his subordinates. This wasn't going to be friendly, but I didn't care. I'd dealt with vengeful brothers before. Su Hai was just a lieutenant general, basically a brigade commander. If he wanted to avenge his cousin, I'd happily make it a matching set of cripples. The kneeling soldier he'd questioned was stammering, eyes darting between me and Su Hai, too scared to talk straight. I stepped forward and fixed Su Hai with a cold stare. "Hey, are you blind? You're asking them? I'm standing right here. You can't see me?" Su Hai looked at me with murder in his eyes. Never mind my insult. I'd crippled his cousin. That wasn't something he'd let slide easily. "Deputy Commander? From which army?" His voice dripped with menace. "Did you do this to my brother Su Jiang?" Before I could answer, Guhu jumped in front of me. "Su Hai, watch yourself. My commander is the Tiger Guard Deputy Commander and Imperial Reader to the Crown Prince. By Dakian law, you should dismount and kneel immediately." Su Hai sneered at Guhu. "You think you matter, Guhu? I should have killed you years ago." Then he pointed his sword at me. "I don't care who you are or why this happened. You will pay for this." He declared us enemy spies, fabricating charges on the spot, calling our credentials fake, ordering his troops to seize us dead or alive. Darker and more ruthless than his cousin. At least Su Jiang had started with petty harassment. This guy went straight to kill orders. I pulled out my token again. This is the Tiger Guard Deputy Commander's seal. Today's mess was entirely Su Jiang's doing. If any of you want to end up like him, go ahead. Su Hai wouldn't even let his soldiers look at the token. Don't listen to him. He's a spy with a forged token. Take him down. Dead or alive. His soldiers trusted their general over a stranger. They moved in with drawn swords. I cracked my neck. "Fine, let's go." Then, at that exact moment, a voice rang out from down the street. "His Highness the Prince of Liang approaches." Everyone froze. A grand procession appeared, An 8-man palanquin surrounded by 16 guards, attendants, and servants. It was the second prince, Li Chengru, with a retinue that rivaled the crown prince's own. Every soldier immediately sheathed their weapons, cleared the road, and dropped to their knees. Even Su Hai scrambled off his horse and knelt. Gu Hu knelt too. I was the only one left standing. The second prince? Here? Now. No way this was a coincidence. A eunuch at the front of the procession spotted me standing alone. Insolent. Why don't you kneel before the Prince of Liang? From inside the palanquin, Li Chengru waved lazily. It's fine. He's the exception. If he doesn't want to kneel, he doesn't have to. He stepped out and walked up to me with a pleasant smile. Long time no see, Sir Sun. Or should I say General Sun now? Your Highness can call me whatever he likes, I replied coolly. No, proper titles matter. Father appointed you Tiger Guard Deputy Commander. Can't disrespect that. He patted my shoulder casually. That little performance shattered whatever was left of the soldiers' resistance. The same men who'd been ready to kill me moments ago were now pale with regret. If the second prince himself was treating me like a valued colleague, not even requiring me to kneel, then my rank was obviously real. They'd almost attacked a genuine deputy commander. They were finished. Every soldier turned hateful eyes towards Su Hai, the man who'd egged them on. Su Hai's forehead was dripping sweat, his mind clearly racing for an escape plan. I gave the second prince a polite fist salute. Thank you for not making me kneel, Your Highness, he smiled warmly. Don't mention it. But what was really behind that smile? I couldn't tell. Friend or enemy? I had no idea. But one thing was certain. This man was every bit as deep and calculating as his father. Dealing with him required extreme caution. Everyone get up, the second prince said, scanning the kneeling soldiers with cold eyes. The soldiers stood up, but looked terrified. The second prince walked over to Su Hai with that calm smile of his. You're Su Hai, correct? Yes, Your Highness. Su Hai relaxed slightly, seeing the smile instead of anger. He'd already prepared a speech to clear himself, paint himself as a loyal patriot, blame everything on the confusion. But the second prince didn't ask a single question. He just waved to his guards. Take him to prison. Send him to the Ministry of Justice for trial. Su Hai's jaw dropped. I'm innocent. Your Highness, please. I was only serving Dakian. The prince didn't even turn around. He waved his hand, and the guards dragged Su Hai away screaming. No explanation, no investigation, no chance to defend himself. Just gone. Everyone was stunned. Even I was stunned. General Sun, is there anyone else you'd like sent to prison? I had to think fast. On the surface, this looked like the second prince doing me a huge favor. But was it really? He'd just thrown a lieutenant general in jail without even asking what happened. That kind of power play could easily be turned against me later. What if he was setting me up, making it look like I abused my connections to imprison people? Your Highness, this seems a bit. He read my concern immediately. Don't worry. I oversee the Ministry of Justice. I already received a report about this incident on my way here. I know the full story. Everything I'm doing follows Dakian law. No personal bias. That calmed me down somewhat. But what was his angle? Why help me? I was the Crown Prince's man, his political enemy. Was he trying to recruit me? That seemed too clumsy for someone of his caliber. The two brothers had been at each other's throats for years. Anyone else need to be locked up? He asked again. I looked around at the trembling soldiers. No, they were just following orders. Let them go. He nodded and addressed the troops. General Sun is being generous. You'll each report to the military inspector for 20 lashes. Consider this matter closed. As for Su Jiang and the soldiers who attacked General Sun, they'll be handled by the military inspector's office. The soldiers practically collapsed with relief. 20 lashes beat prison any day. They bowed and scattered, leaving just a few of Su Jiang's men to resume gate duty. I couldn't believe it. Minutes ago, I was surrounded by drawn swords. Now everything had evaporated like smoke. Whatever his motives, I owed him thanks. I bowed properly. I appreciate your help today, Your Highness. It was nothing. He patted my shoulder again. Your Highness has impressive intelligence networks. You arrived so quickly and already knew the whole story, he smiled. I happened to be nearby. A soldier filled me in on the way over. The rest I figured out myself. Plausible enough. I dropped it. Then he asked if I was still heading out of the city. I told him I was. Imperial orders to visit the Imperial farm. He nodded thoughtfully. When you return, why not stop by my residence? It's not far from here. We could chat. This guy really knew how to work people. He'd just solved my problem, shown me respect in front of hundreds of soldiers, and now he was extending a personal invitation. All perfectly timed to make refusing feel ungrateful. Classic manipulation disguised as kindness. He'd just helped me, and now he wanted me at his residence. Refusing would seem rude, but accepting was complicated given our political positions. Your Highness, I already have plans this afternoon. I need to visit Governor Yao's residence. I'll come by another day to properly thank you for today. He wasn't bothered by the rejection. Still smiling. Then I'll be waiting, General Sun. Don't forget our appointment. I watched his procession disappear down the street. Guhu asked if the second prince and I went way back. I told him this was only our second time meeting and our first actual conversation. His jaw nearly hit the ground. A prince treating a near stranger with that much respect? He couldn't wrap his head around it. He's trying to recruit me, I said flatly. We'll deal with that later. Let's get to the Imperial farm. We rode out through the gate. The same soldiers who'd been threatening me earlier couldn't even make eye contact. Nobody dared slow us down for half a second. We reached the Imperial farm quickly. The place was massive, flat, fertile land with leftover crop stalks from a recent harvest. I knelt down and checked the soil. Incredible quality. I wouldn't even need to till it properly. Just burn the old stalks and plant the potatoes directly. Then Guhu pulled up a stalk root and called me over urgently. I crouched down and my blood went cold. The root was covered, absolutely crawling, with tiny dark brown larvae. I snapped it open. More inside. Thousands of them. These are locust larvae, Guhu said, his voice shaking. I knew exactly what they were. I'd grown up farming in my previous life, but I'd never seen this many on a single root. We checked more stalks. Every single one was infested. Millions upon millions of larvae across this enormous farm. And if the Imperial farm was this bad, the entire region around the capital was probably the same. This wasn't a small locust problem. This was a once-in-a-century plague waiting to happen. Guhu asked if we could just burn everything now and stop it. I shook my head. It's not just this field. Every piece of farmland around the capital probably looks the same. Burning one farm won't help. When the swarm hatched, they'd devour everything. Not just crops, but grass, leaves, bark, everything. Next year, there'd be nothing to eat. Millions of people could starve to death. We need to get back. The Emperor has to know about this immediately. But seeing the Emperor wasn't simple. Without a special summons, I'd need to file a request, wait for approval, wait for a scheduled meeting. The whole bureaucratic nightmare. There wasn't time for that. I raced home, wrote an urgent letter detailing everything, grabbed the infested stock samples, and headed straight for Governor Yao's residence with Guhu. Yao was the only person who could get this information to the Emperor fast enough. Neither of us said a word on the ride there. The weight of what we discovered pressed down on both of us like a stone. We arrived at Governor Yao's mansion just as the prince's procession pulled up. After quick greetings, we walked in together. Li Qianqing kept trying to chat, but I wasn't in the mood. He noticed immediately. Something's wrong with you today? What happened? I wanted to tell him about the locusts, but his attendants Lu Jin and bodyguard Li Ziging were right there. Too many ears. There is something big. Let's wait until we're with Governor Yao. Inside the garden pavilion, Yao Tianzheng had tea waiting. After the formal bowing and pleasantries, we sat down. I was about to bring up the locust disaster, but Yao started talking about the court session first. He wanted to test whether we'd figured out the Emperor's intentions. Both the prince and I nodded. We'd had 2 days to think it over and had reached the same conclusions. The prince spoke first, and he nailed it. The attacks on Sun Jian weren't really about him. They were aimed at weakening the Eastern Palace, cutting off my right arm. Lu San and Zhang the eunuch were just disposable pawns. Even Wei Xian is only a claw. The real hand behind everything is one of my brothers. His eyes turned cold. He'd already eliminated the possibilities. The fourth prince was at the border, never involved in politics. The sixth was only 7. The ninth was still a baby. That left only one person, the second prince, Li Qingru. Governor Yao sighed and agreed. The second prince was supposed to govern Liang province, but that territory was still a war zone and couldn't be reclaimed. So he stayed in the capital, accumulated positions including control of the Ministry of Justice, and his ambitions kept growing. I frowned. If the Emperor knows all this, why doesn't he just send the second prince away? Give him another territory, or station him at the border like the fourth prince? Keeping someone like that in the capital is asking for trouble. Yao shook his head. The feudal assignments were made at birth. You can't change them on a whim. That would make the emperor look inconsistent. How can you govern a nation if you reverse your own decrees? Besides, the second prince is still the emperor's son. Without solid proof of wrongdoing, banishing him would only breed deeper resentment. Give a bitter man an army at the frontier, and you create an even bigger threat down the road. Then don't send him to the border, I argued. Just get him out of the capital. Assign him something that keeps him away from political and military power. Yao waved me off. You can't think about it that way. The second prince is brilliant and capable. He's the emperor's own blood. Wherever he goes, he'll naturally attract political and military power. If the emperor can't even trust his own son, who can he trust? Using outsiders instead would create even bigger risks of rebellion. He had a point. If you strip a prince of his duties just because you're suspicious, you're handing those same powers to outsiders who might be even more dangerous. And even without an official position, a prince with ambition can still secretly recruit allies and build forces. Removing Wei Xian from his post wouldn't stop him from working behind the scenes for the second prince. And what about the sixth and ninth princes when they grow up? Yao continued. Strip them too? What about Prime Minister Lin, who's arguably an even bigger threat? Remove everyone you suspect without proof? Then who runs the government? Who commands the officials? The emperor's only real option is balance, using each faction to check the others. The second prince is a whetstone to sharpen the crown prince. If the prince can't learn to handle rivals like this, how will he ever rule the empire? I nodded. That actually made sense. Even if Liang province gets recovered someday, Yao added, the emperor would probably keep the second prince in the capital rather than send him to his territory. Keeping him close is the only way to truly maintain the balance. Li Qianxing stood up and bowed deeply to Yao. I understand now, teacher. He'd been blaming his father for not protecting him more directly. Now he finally grasped the emperor's deeper reasoning. Then Yao asked the prince to explain the emperor's final moves at court. Li Qianxing laid it out confidently. Father knows Wei Xian is behind everything, but Wei Xian can't be touched directly. The Wei family is the second most powerful noble clan. Their people are embedded in military units across the empire. If cornered, Wei Xian could rally them all. Even with solid proof, Father would publicly question the evidence and protect Wei Xian's face, because removing him too quickly could trigger something worse. The only option is to slowly strip his power, piece by piece. The Tiger Guard is controlled by Wei family loyalists. Father sent son Jian in as deputy commander to gradually take control, strengthen my position, and dig up evidence against Wei Xian, all without alarming anyone. That's the two birds with one stone. Yao nodded approvingly throughout, but then said, Not two birds, Your Highness. 3. The prince looked puzzled. Yao turned to me. Sir son, can you see the third? I smiled. Dismantling the factional warfare. The prince frowned, not immediately getting it. But Yao's eyes widened briefly before settling into a deeply satisfied expression. He told me later that even he hadn't figured out that third layer on his own. The emperor had to explain it to him directly. Yet I'd nailed it in 2 words without anyone telling me. The idea was simple. Once the prince controlled the Tiger Guard and Wei Xian's network was dismantled, it wouldn't just strengthen the prince. It would fundamentally reshape the court's power structure. The factional deadlock that paralyzed everything would start breaking apart. With balanced power firmly in the crown prince's hands, the court could actually function as one body instead of warring camps. Yao looked at me with an expression I could only describe as mixed with relief, like a man who'd just confirmed that his biggest bet was going to pay off. Dismantle the factional warfare. The prince frowned. Then his eyes went wide. There's something wrong inside the Tiger Guard itself? Yao and I looked at each other and nodded. The prince started connecting all the dots. With the emperor's health declining, court factions had gotten worse. 3 power blocks now existed. Prime Minister Lin's faction, the largest, with roots everywhere, the Crown Prince's faction, and the Second Prince's faction. The balance had been tilting recently, with the Second Prince aggressively recruiting allies, and even the supposedly neutral Prime Minister starting to pick sides. Former imperial loyalists like Wei Xian were defecting. If left unchecked, this factional warfare could topple the throne or destroy the nation entirely. The Tiger Guard was supposed to be the emperor's own force protecting the capital, It couldn't be allowed to become a factional tool, and I was the emperor's chosen piece to break the deadlock. So even without the assassination attempts, the prince said slowly, putting Sun Jian in the Tiger Guard was always the plan. Exactly, Yao confirmed. I shook my head and smiled bitterly. Your Highness, it goes even deeper than that. Your father is scarier than we think. I pointed at Gu, who's standing beside me. Remember how the emperor promised me soldiers for potato farming? They arrived yesterday, not a day earlier, not a day later, the exact moment after I was named Tiger Guard deputy commander. 1,000 elite soldiers led by this man, who happens to be from the Gu family's old military network. That's no coincidence. With Guhu's 1,000 soldiers, I have protection at home, manpower for the imperial farm, and backup when I enter the Tiger Guard. Another 3 birds with 1 stone. The emperor planned the entire chessboard in advance and just placed each piece at exactly the right moment. The prince was stunned into silence, then slowly nodded with newfound awe for his father. I turned to Yao. And Governor Yao, your little performance in court that day, guiding everyone toward Wei Xian, that was coordinated with the emperor too, wasn't it? Yao laughed. You're not wrong. The emperor hinted at his intentions, and I simply read between the lines. Simply is generous, I said flatly. You two probably planned that for quite a while. The old fox kept playing innocent. I wanted to throttle him. These people and their bottomless scheming. All 1,000-year foxes pretending to play innocent with me. I pressed on. I think the emperor left me 2 safety nets. First, eunuch Su from the imperial household. Even if I hadn't bribed him and asked questions, he would have found a way to feed me the information about the Tiger Guard's internal structure. And the second? Yao asked, clearly enjoying this. That involves you, Governor. Lu Shiyun, the Tiger Guard Lieutenant General who commands the archers. Your protege, promoted after the Wuhan campaign in the 7th year. The emperor and you planted him inside the Tiger Guard years ago, waiting for exactly this moment. I turned to the prince and explained. With Guhu's troops supporting me from outside and Lu Shiyun as an ally inside, I can move freely within the Tiger Guard. That's what Governor Yao was going to tell us today. Yao's smile was practically glowing now. He said, good, 3 times in a row. It seems I'm no longer needed for explanations. Sir Sun has already figured out everything on his own. With someone like this supporting the crown prince, our empire's future is bright indeed. I gave Yao a look. He and the emperor had been using me as a chess piece this whole time, and they weren't even subtle about it. If he hadn't helped me before, I would have cursed him out right there. Honestly, I didn't care about unifying the empire. I just wanted to live my life, protect my people, and deal with threats as they came. History was full of emperors who slaughtered their loyal helpers once they were no longer useful. Liu Bang, Zhao Guo, Zhu Yuanzhang. I'd help Li Qiansheng because he was my friend, not because he was the crown prince. But if he ever turned on me, I wouldn't hesitate either. The prince formally bowed to me and asked for my continued support, calling me, sir, instead of his usual, Brother Sunday. It gave me goosebumps. I help you because you're my friend, not because you're the crown prince, I told him straight. We both laughed, and the tension broke. Then the prince asked Yao what exactly was wrong inside the Tiger Guard. I wanted to know too. I was starting tomorrow. But the old fox shook his head. The emperor wants her son to discover it himself. Consider it training. I nearly lost it. They'd laid out this entire elaborate plan, and now at the last step they wanted me to figure things out on my own. These 2 old schemers were unbelievable. Fine. I had Lu Shiyun on the inside. I'd manage. But there was something far more urgent than the Tiger Guard investigation. I signaled Gu to bring forward the stock samples. Governor Yao, Your Highness, I have something more serious to report. Gu placed the stalks on the stone table. The prince and Yao picked them up and looked them over, confused. Just ordinary crop stalks. Break them open, I said. Look inside. They cracked the roots apart and nearly jumped out of their seats. Inside every single stalk, thousands upon thousands of dark brown eggs packed together like a nightmare. God, this many locust eggs? The prince's face went white. Yao tore open the remaining samples. Every single one was the same. Tens of thousands of eggs per root. Where did you find these? Yao asked, his face ashen. The imperial farm east of the city. Every stalk root out there looks like this. The infestation probably covers the entire region around the capital, maybe further. Based on the egg's development stage, the swarm will hatch in about 15 days. The scale will be catastrophic, the worst in 100 years. I explained what I knew from my previous life. A single locust consumes about 100 grams of plant material in its lifetime. A swarm numbers in the billions, sometimes trillions. They eat everything: crops, grass, leaves, bark. Once they strip one area clean, they migrate to the next. They can fly across an entire country. Nothing this era's people had experienced could prepare them for what was coming. If we didn't act fast, millions would starve to death. The news hit the prince and governor Yao like a sledgehammer. Their faces went gray. A locust plague of this scale was beyond anything humans could fight with normal methods. Millions of lives were at stake, and we had maybe 15 days before the swarm hatched. "We must see the emperor immediately," Yao said, forcing himself to stay calm. The prince asked how many people knew. "Just me and Guhu so far." Nobody else had discovered the eggs yet, but it was only a matter of time, and the locusts would probably hatch before anyone noticed. Both of them agreed the information had to be kept secret. If word got out, there'd be nationwide panic. We wasted no time. With the prince's status and Yao's imperial study privileges, getting an audience with the emperor would be easy. We loaded into a carriage and raced toward the palace. On the way, the prince and Yao sat there looking like the world was ending. I was calmer. I'd already had my panic moment at the farm. "Why so gloomy?" I asked. "How can we not be gloomy? If we handle this wrong, millions die." I didn't respond to that. They noticed my expression wasn't as desperate as theirs. "Wait, Sun Jian, do you actually have a plan?" They both perked up, staring at me with desperate hope. In their eyes, I was the miracle worker who always pulled something out of nowhere. "I do have one idea, but it's hard to execute, and only the emperor himself can make it work. Tell us." I hesitated. This was going to sound insane to them. "You sure you want to hear it? Just say it." 3 words. Catch, fry, eat. Dead silence. "What?" "Catch the locusts. Fry the locusts. Eat the locusts." Their jaws dropped in perfect unison, eyes wide, mouths hanging open, staring at me like I'd lost my mind. I understood their reaction. In this era, people believed locusts were divine punishment sent from heaven. You could try to chase them away, but eating them? That was blasphemy. Common folk thought locusts were poisonous, and eating them would shorten your life. These beliefs were deeply rooted. And I wasn't just suggesting people eat them. I was saying the emperor had to eat them first, publicly, to lead by example. If I'd said this to anyone other than the prince and Yao, I'd probably be thrown in prison for disrespecting heaven and the throne. I shrugged. It's the only solution I've got. Nothing else will work against numbers this massive. If you don't want to hear it, I won't bring it up with the emperor either. The carriage went dead silent. Just the creaking of the wheels. Think about it. The empire was full of starving refugees and homeless people. Heaven was about to drop billions of protein-rich insects on them. This wasn't a disaster. This was free food falling from the sky. Turn the catastrophe into a blessing. But if people couldn't accept it, what could I do? After a long silence, the prince swallowed hard and spoke quietly. "Sun Jian, can locusts really be eaten?" "Of course they can," I said without hesitation. "Locusts are actually delicious, crispy, tasty, packed with nutrition. In my previous life, people even dried them and used them as traditional medicine. They're completely harmless to eat and actually have health benefits, warming the stomach, aiding digestion, relieving coughs. Locusts aren't divine punishment at all. They're actually a blessing. People just refuse to see it because they're trapped by old superstitions." The prince sighed heavily. "That's terrifying to even hear." Yao's brow was so furrowed it looked painful. Completely unheard of, I dropped it. "Fine, don't believe me. But it's the only solution. Handle it right, and the people won't just survive the plague. They'll actually recover from the famine by eating the locusts." Yao warned me solemnly not to mention any of this to the emperor unless absolutely necessary. Even these two, who trusted me most, couldn't accept it. I nodded. No point being stupid about it. We entered the palace and waited outside the Taiji Hall. My written report had already been delivered ahead of us. Within minutes, we were summoned inside. The emperor sat in his dragon robe, face stern, holding my report. He'd read it 4 times already. Each time, his face got paler. He didn't ask questions right away. Instead, he ordered seats brought for us, unusual enough to signal how serious this was. After a long silence, he stood up abruptly. "Wang De, Summon every senior minister to the Taiji Hall immediately. No delays. Wangda practically ran out. He'd served the emperor for decades and had rarely seen him this shaken. Then the emperor fixed his cold gaze on me. According to your report, this swarm could reach hundreds of billions. I wouldn't dare exaggerate to your majesty. Based on the egg density I observed, it'll start at hundreds of billions and quickly reach a trillion. At peak, possibly tens of trillions. Everyone in the room gasped. Even the prince and Yao, who'd seen the evidence. We'd discussed the scale being catastrophic, but never put actual numbers on it. Tens of trillions of locusts would strip the entire empire bare. Not a blade of grass would survive. The emperor set down the report and began pacing. The empire was already battered. 2 years of drought across the western provinces. Last year's earthquake in the northwest causing floods and famine. The Yellow River overflowing. Constant border wars draining the treasury. People were already starving. In some places, families were trading children for food. If this locust plague hit on top of everything else, Dakian might not survive. Is heaven truly trying to destroy me? Destroy my empire? He murmured, staring out at the sky. That was my opening. Ancient emperors always blamed themselves for natural disasters, believing heaven was punishing their mistakes. I needed to break that thinking before I could propose my real solution. I stepped forward. Your Majesty, please don't blame yourself. Locust plagues, earthquakes, floods. Every dynasty throughout history has faced these. Natural disasters have no connection to the ruler's virtue. This plague is not heaven's judgment. It's simply nature. The emperor turned around and looked at me intently. Even Yao and the prince shifted uncomfortably. What I'd just said bordered on challenging traditional beliefs about the mandate of heaven. But inside, I was grinning. Flattery opens every door. If I wanted to turn this locust disaster into a locust feast, I needed the emperor in the right headspace first. Your Majesty has ruled for 11 years with tireless devotion, always putting the nation and its people first. You are a once-in-a-generation wise ruler. We still have 15 days before the swarm hatches. Heaven has its own course. Your Majesty should feel concern for the people, but never guilt. That loosened the tension in the room. Even the prince and Yao were impressed by how smoothly I defused the emperor's spiral into self-blame while slipping in some flattery. The emperor's brow relaxed slightly. He sighed. Even if it's not my fault, years of disasters have emptied the treasury. Wars on every border. The nation can barely stand. And now this. The prince stepped up with 3 proposals. First, survey the full scope of the infestation. Second, lock down information and prepare emergency grain stores. Third, save seeds for replanting after the disaster. Yao endorsed it. The emperor went silent. I could guess what he was thinking. The prince's plan sounded reasonable, but it couldn't actually solve anything. Where would emergency grain come from when the treasury was already empty? Previous disaster victims hadn't even been fed yet. People were already eating tree bark, clay, even corpses and children. Post-disaster seeds? If people had seeds, they'd eat them before planting. The oppressive silence stretched on until a eunuch announced that the senior ministers had arrived. 7 men filed in. Prime Minister Lin Xuanfu, the imperial censor, the ministers of revenue, justice, war, personnel, and works. Including Yao, that made 8 of the 11 senior advisors present. The other 3 were provincial governors too far away to attend. When Wei Xian walked in, our eyes met. We both flinched. Every time I saw that man, I had to swallow my rage. The emperor passed my report around. One by one, their faces turned ashen. When they examined the stock samples, they were speechless. Prime Minister Lin, to his credit, stayed composed. Has this been verified, Your Majesty? The emperor didn't answer, just had Wang to show them the evidence. After discussion, Lin presented the group's conclusions. Similar to the prince's plan, but more detailed. Suppress information, stockpile grain, destroy eggs before hatching, pay soldiers to catch adult locusts, encourage farmers to raise locust-eating poultry, and use the ancient method of setting fires at night with trenches to trap and burn swarms. The emperor scanned their faces. This is all you've got? They nodded. It was the best they could think of. The emperor sighed. Same old methods. But where was the money? The treasury had been bled dry. They couldn't even fund relief for the existing disasters. The revenue minister suggested pulling troops and supplies from Xi province, which had managed a harvest last year despite floods. Maybe that could cover the immediate crisis. Before anyone could respond, Wei Xian stepped forward. Your Majesty, I disagree with Minister Mi's proposal. Wei Xian argued against pulling supplies from Xi province. Our troops there are fighting the Great Xia Kingdom. 10,000 soldiers waiting for provisions. Divert their grain, and we risk a mutiny at the front. The revenue minister fired back. If not Xi province, where? Every other province was barely surviving. Wei Xian doubled down. Locust plagues happen all the time. As long as we destroy the eggs properly, it won't be that bad. I couldn't help it. I let out a cold laugh. This old bastard was unbelievable. Not that bad. This could be the worst locust disaster in history, and he was brushing it off. With officials like him, no wonder the empire was falling apart. He heard my laugh and turned on me. Does Sir Sun have a better plan? Every eye in the room shifted to me. Most of these ministers had only seen me once at court. They'd heard my name everywhere. Their own servants couldn't stop talking about me, but that actually made them resent me more. To them, I was just a lucky commoner who'd caught the emperor's eye. Nothing special. I smiled at Wei Xian. Whether I have a plan is beside the point. You're one of the 6 ministers, and you just told everyone a catastrophic plague is not that bad. That's either blindness or nonsense. His face went scarlet. Being publicly attacked by a junior nobody in front of the emperor and every top official. Who wouldn't be furious? I didn't let up. One stalk root contains thousands of eggs. The imperial farm stretches for hundreds of li into the mountains. We're talking trillions of locusts that will strip every piece of land bare. Millions will die. The nation could collapse. And you say not that bad? You're spitting in the face of every citizen in this empire. Wei Xian looked ready to explode. 2 massive accusations slapped on him at once. Too heavy for even a minister to shrug off. My words were rough, but every point was backed by evidence. He couldn't argue back without making himself look worse. He just had to swallow it. He bowed to the emperor desperately. Your Majesty, I never meant any such thing, I chimed in helpfully. I can confirm Minister Wei was merely speaking nonsense, not actually abandoning the empire. He nearly coughed up blood. The emperor cut us both off. Enough. This is not the place for bickering. We both dropped to our knees and apologized. He waved us up without any real punishment. The other ministers noticed. Anyone else would have been disciplined for arguing like that in the imperial hall. The emperor's favoritism toward me was on full display. Then he turned to me. Sun Jian, do you have a solution for this plague? I froze. My idea was the locust-eating plan. But on the ride over, both the prince and Yao had explicitly warned me not to say it in front of the emperor. Now the emperor was asking me directly. I glanced at the prince and Yao for support. They both looked away. Those traitors, abandoning me at the critical moment. Sun Jian, I'm asking you a question. The emperor's voice turned icy. I gritted my teeth. Screw it. Your Majesty, I do have a method. If executed properly, it can completely eliminate the locust plague. The emperor shot to his feet. Every minister in the room stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Completely eliminate a locust plague? That sounded absolutely insane. Wei Xian sneered under his breath. A commoner like you has a solution? Cure a locust plague? I'll have you charged with deceiving the emperor. The other ministers piled on. Prime Minister Lin called me reckless and arrogant. The personnel minister said no genius in history had ever claimed to cure a large-scale locust plague. The imperial censor said I'd gone insane from fear. Only Master Zhuang stayed quiet, sighing with worry for me. I ignored them all and looked straight at the emperor. Your Majesty, I'm not making empty claims. If my method fails to eliminate the plague, I'll accept the charge of deceiving the throne. The emperor walked right up to me and put his hand on my shoulder. I believe you. Tell me your plan. The method will definitely work, but it's hard to explain. Speak freely. I won't punish you no matter what. I needed a cover story. I couldn't just say, I know this from my previous life, so I played the mysterious medical heritage card. Your Majesty, this method comes from my medical teacher in the Qinling Mountains, the one who taught me everything I know about medicine. Across the room, the prince almost choked. On the carriage, I hadn't mentioned any teacher. He knew I was lying through my teeth right in front of his father. Governor Yao rubbed his forehead. He realized I was dragging both of them into my deception since they knew the truth. I kept going with a straight face worthy of an acting award. Our medical school is called the Ghost Doctors. We have 3 medical texts, the classic of herbs, the inner canon, and the classic of difficulties. I sounded so sincere that everyone was hanging on every word. The cure for locusts isn't something I invented. It's recorded in our school's medical texts. Wei Xian cut in. Medical texts that cure locust plagues? That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Your Majesty, this man is clearly lying. He should be punished for deceiving the throne. Several ministers echoed him. I fired back immediately. I haven't even finished talking. How can you call it a lie when you haven't heard the full explanation? Have any of you seen my teacher's medical books? How do you know what's recorded in them? If we dismissed everything unusual as impossible, there'd be no miracles in this world. And the emperor told me to speak freely. Why are you interrupting? That shut them up. The emperor said nothing. He just watched me, waiting. I took a deep breath. Your Majesty, the classic of herbs states that locusts are not divine punishment. They are not a curse from heaven. They are, in fact, a blessing. The room erupted in stunned silence. Every jaw dropped. A blessing? Had I completely lost my mind? Even the emperor's eyebrows twisted into knots. The man who never flinched at anything was staring at me in disbelief. I pressed on calmly. The book records, and I have personally verified, that locusts are highly nutritious. When fried in oil, they are not only safe to eat, but are actually a valuable medicinal ingredient. They can relieve coughs, neutralize toxins, warm the stomach, strengthen digestion, and boost vitality. The entire hall went numb. Nobody could process what they'd just heard. Locusts could be eaten? They were medicine? This was beyond anything anyone had ever imagined. The silence in the Taiji hall was absolute. The emperor searched my eyes for any sign of doubt or deception. But I stood there with complete confidence, not a flicker of uncertainty on my face. Then someone broke the silence. Outrageous. Speaking such madness before the emperor. Treating a catastrophe like a joke. The imperial censor stomped his feet in rage. The other ministers piled on. Wei Xian called me treasonous. The personnel minister said if locusts were edible, then why had every dynasty suffered from plagues? And Prime Minister Lin formally requested the emperor punish me for deceiving the throne. I looked at these people with pure contempt. Locusts were basically grasshoppers. No viruses, fed on plants, packed with protein. Fry them up, and they taste like crispy shrimp. With millions of refugees starving across the empire, trillions of free protein snacks falling from the sky could save countless lives and reverse the entire crisis. But these narrow-minded fools had no vision. They couldn't solve the problem themselves, and they wouldn't let me solve it either. Fine, let the empire burn then. I was about to give up and tell the emperor to find another solution when Governor Yao suddenly spoke up. Your Majesty, I've actually heard of Sir Sun's method before. The room went silent. Everyone knew the Yao family had been renowned physicians for generations. Yao himself was famous for his medical skills. If he said he'd heard of this, it wasn't just some commoner's nonsense anymore. I was stunned but immediately understood. Yao was putting his own neck on the line to back me up. He was tying his fate to mine out of pure trust. I was deeply moved. Yao explained with a perfectly straight face. Our family's medical text, the Compendium of Herbs, contains a section on locust medicinal properties. It describes drying and grinding locusts into powder to treat conditions like convulsions and whooping cough. If ground locusts can be taken as medicine, then Sir Sun's suggestion of frying them for consumption follows the same medical logic. The prince jumped in immediately. Father, the teacher is right. Same insect, same consumption, just different preparation. Medically speaking, the principle is identical. Even Wang De chimed in. If locusts can be taken as medicine, then they can surely be eaten as food. Perhaps this plague really is a blessing in disguise. Master Zhuang added his support too, sharing how people in his hometown used pink starlings to hunt locusts, birds that ate nothing but locusts their whole lives. If birds can eat locusts without harm, and two respected medical traditions confirm locusts have medicinal value, then surely humans can eat them too. The works minister also stepped forward to endorse us. The tide had completely turned. The emperor nodded thoughtfully, seeming to gradually accept the idea. I could now see the room clearly divided into two camps. Supporting me, Yao, the prince, Master Zhuang, the works minister, and Wang De. Against me, Prime Minister Lin, Personnel Minister Li Kuei, and that idiot Wei Xian. The revenue minister and the imperial censor seemed neutral. They'd only attacked me earlier because they genuinely thought I was crazy, not out of malice. The emperor scanned the room and settled his gaze on the ones who'd been screaming for my head minutes ago. And what do the rest of you think now? The imperial censor looked deeply embarrassed. He'd been following Wei Xian's lead and now couldn't figure out how to reverse course without losing face. He glanced desperately at the revenue minister sitting nearby. The revenue minister looked ready to murder him. He'd only talked about grain shipments. He'd never said a word about eating locusts one way or another. Why was everyone looking at him? The revenue minister gave the imperial censor a dirty look, then bowed. Your Majesty, I support Sir Sun's proposal. If locusts are truly edible, then this disaster becomes a blessing. Billions of locusts become food. Millions of starving people get fed. The empire turns chaos into order. The imperial censor immediately jumped ship too. I agree. If this works, Sir Sun deserves the highest credit. I glanced at the old turncoat. Minutes ago, he was calling me insane. Once those two flipped, the rest had no choice. Prime Minister Lin's face turned red as he stepped forward. Perhaps. Locusts really can be eaten. I concur. Wei Xian and Li Kuei swallowed their pride and mumbled agreement. Wang De nearly burst out laughing behind his hand. The prince and Yao were fighting back grins. The emperor stared at Wei Xian and the others with a faint smile, letting the silence stretch. Their faces got redder and redder as they replayed their own words in their heads. First screaming for my execution, now nodding along like obedient children. Shameless weather vanes, every one of them. I savored every second. This felt better than slapping their faces with my actual hands. Everyone agrees with Sir Sun? The emperor asked. Yes, Your Majesty, they answered in unison. Then let him present his full plan. I bowed and laid out my three-step strategy. Step 1. Suppress news of the plague. Meanwhile, spread information everywhere that locusts have medicinal value. Make it convincing, back it with evidence, spread it through folk songs and children's rhymes. After 3 days, once people accept the idea, have local governments offer grain in exchange for captured locusts. This removes the fear. This step is about reshaping beliefs. Step 2. Once the exchange program starts, announce that locusts can also be eaten. Set up public tasting stations where officials and doctors eat fried locusts first to prove it's safe. Within a few days, brave people will follow. Once they taste it and survive, everyone else will follow. Step 3. Before the swarm hatches, distribute nets and traps to every district. Teach people how to catch locusts. On the day the swarm arrives, the emperor personally conducts a grand ceremony at the altar of heaven, thanking the heavens for this blessing, and eats fried locusts in front of everyone. Nobody objected. They couldn't. They had nothing better and had already agreed locusts were edible. Wei Xian and his crowd didn't dare make a sound. I added one final point. For remote areas with few people, we should breed natural locust predators in advance. Ducks, birds, toads, and wasps, to suppress the swarm through biological control. The emperor approved everything without hesitation. His mouth curved into a rare smile. A catastrophic plague had just been transformed into a national blessing in one conversation. This plan will be implemented exactly as Sir Sun described. Governor Yao will serve as imperial commissioner to oversee execution. We obey, Your Majesty. Wei Xian and Lin glared daggers at me throughout. I knew exactly what they were thinking. They'd been publicly humiliated and would look for ways to sabotage the plan or strike at me from the shadows. I smiled to myself. Bring it on, old men. I've still got 2 legendary lottery draws in my backpack that I haven't used yet. Don't push me. The flattery started flowing. The revenue minister praised me as a heaven-sent genius. Others called me a living immortal who'd turned a historic disaster into fortune. The ministers kept showering me with compliments. I bowed modestly and credited everything to the emperor's wisdom. The emperor looked at me with genuine appreciation, clearly satisfied. With the locust plan settled, he dismissed everyone to go carry out the strategy under Governor Yao's supervision. Just as I was about to follow the others out, the emperor called me back. Sun Jian, stay a moment. Everyone else stopped at the door, curious. The emperor waved them away. I only need Sun Jian. The rest of you leave. The prince and the others shot me amused looks as they walked out. Traitors, all of them. The emperor smiled in a way that made my stomach drop. I have a nice little task for you. What task, Your Majesty? I promised Princess Changle today that I'd take her to watch fish, enjoy flowers, and boat on the lake. But this locust crisis threw everything off. I've still got mountains of paperwork. So, my blood ran cold. No, no. He wanted me to take his daughter on a date? What was this old man thinking? I had 3 wives at home. Tomorrow I had to report to the Tiger Guard. I needed to prepare for Wei Xian's inevitable sabotage. And he wanted me to babysit a princess? I'd like you to go in my place. Keep Changle company for half a day. I knew it. Your Majesty, I really can't. I have too many urgent matters. Wang De nearly had a seizure behind the emperor. Nobody in the empire talked to the ruler like this. The emperor's smile vanished. What matters? The locust preparations. Governor Yao and the ministers are handling that. Nothing for you to do. I want to think of additional strategies. You already gave us everything. What else is there? Tomorrow I need to report to the Tiger Guard, so I should prepare tonight. Go the day after tomorrow instead. What does tomorrow's appointment have to do with today? He demolished every single excuse I threw at him. I was completely outgunned. Arguing with this man was like fighting the ocean. Wang De was frantically making faces at me from behind the emperor, desperately signaling me to just agree. I hadn't noticed until now. Out of options, I tried one last thing. Your Majesty, is this an imperial decree? No, then. Can I say no? The emperor's expression brightened. Sure. Wait, really? Just like that? He was letting me refuse? Before I could even exhale, the emperor added casually. Of course, your new workshop and shops would have to close down. Your Majesty, I'll go. My whole body clenched. He knew about my businesses? How? No, I never force anyone. Take your time to think about it. Sweat poured down my forehead. I bowed as deep as I could. No need to think. I'm absolutely dying to accompany Princess Changle. Can't wait. Let's go right now. The emperor smirked. Remember, this was your choice. I never forced you. 1,000 curses exploded in my head. You sneaky old bastard. That wasn't force. That was blackmail. Absolutely, Your Majesty. From the bottom of my heart, I want nothing more than to spend the day with the princess. He waved Wang De over to escort me. As I walked out, I finally let myself breathe. But the relief lasted about 2 seconds before the terror set in. My workshop and shops had only been running for days. Even some of my own people didn't know the details. Yet the emperor knew everything. He'd never left the palace, but he knew exactly what I was doing in my own backyard. If he knew about the shops, he knew about Forget Your Sorrows Valley and the refined salt. He knew everything and hadn't said a word. What did that mean? What was he planning? Wang De, has the emperor been watching me this whole time? I asked. The old eunuch nearly tripped and fell. He frantically shushed me, looking around in panic to make sure nobody heard. Sir son, please watch what you say in the palace. The emperor favors you greatly, but there are eyes and ears everywhere. Words like that would get anyone else killed. Yeah, I know. He turned around with relief, thinking I'd learned my lesson. 2 seconds later, I opened my mouth again. But you still haven't answered my question about the surveillance. Wang De spun around looking like he wanted to strangle me. Sir son, please. I shrugged innocently and kept going. The emperor obviously has some kind of intelligence network monitoring officials. His understanding of my affairs is way too detailed otherwise. Wang De literally covered his ears. I continued talking to myself. You know, you're right about being careful. One day the emperor's trust could turn to suspicion. You think the prince will be the same way eventually? Trust becomes a luxury, smiling to your face while, Sir son, if you say one more word, I am not taking you to Princess Changle. Find her yourself. Okay. I'll shut up. I zipped my lips and gave him a goofy smile. He shook his head and kept walking. Everything I'd said could get me executed, but I wasn't just being reckless. Today had genuinely shaken me. If the emperor knew about my secret businesses without me telling anyone important, then he had eyes on me at all times. That feeling was deeply uncomfortable. And if he knew about my products, things that could revolutionize this era, yet said nothing and demanded nothing. What was his play? Was he letting me get rich just to seize it all later? Like the historical Hushan, who amassed a fortune that the next emperor simply confiscated. My neck felt cold just thinking about it. I decided then and there to keep a lower profile going forward and stay strictly within the law. And I definitely needed to figure out the emperor's attitude toward my businesses before I ended up making money for the royal family without knowing it. I pushed those worries aside and followed Wang De through the palace gates into the inner court. The architecture was genuinely stunning, even more impressive than the Forbidden City from my previous life. Past the Qinqing Gate, we entered the emperor's private grounds. Princess Changle wasn't far. She was in the Imperial Garden, flying a kite, waiting for her father to show up. Look, someone's flying a kite over there, I pointed out. Wangda explained that the Imperial Garden connected to the inner palace quarters, so concubines and princesses often came here for leisure. Wangda told me he'd come back at the hour of Su to escort me out. That was 2 whole hours from now, and it'd be dark by then. Emperor's orders. Great. I grumbled, but eventually talked myself into accepting it. Princess Changle was gorgeous after all. Flawless skin, long legs, incredible figure. Spending time with a beauty like that while earning system affection points? Could be worse. Aside from the guilt toward my 3 wives, anyway. I was starting to feel better about the whole thing when I realized Wang De had vanished. And this Imperial Garden was enormous. Where was I supposed to find the princess? I ran into several groups of palace maids. They all looked at me like I was an alien. A non-eunuch male wandering the inner palace was apparently quite the event. I asked for directions, and they pointed me toward a lake where the princess was flying a kite. When I got there, I saw a maid crouching at the water's edge, leaning forward with her body stretched out over the bank. From behind, it looked exactly like she was about to jump in. My brain immediately flashed to every tragic palace drama I'd ever watched. I shouted without thinking, "No, don't do it." The poor girl wasn't trying to jump at all. She was just fishing out a fallen kite. But my yell scared her so badly she slipped and splashed right into the water. Wait, she actually fell in. She couldn't swim. She was thrashing around, gulping water, screaming for help between mouthfuls. I looked around desperately for a branch or a stick, anything, but the bank was nothing but flat grass. Not a single tree anywhere. Then I spotted the kite floating in the water, long and stick-shaped. That would work. I hooked it with my foot, dragged it to shore, and held it out for her to grab. She caught it, but her grip was failing. I lunged forward, grabbed her collar, and yanked hard. Her dress ripped badly, but I hauled her onto land. Her soaked, torn clothes left very little to the imagination. Under normal circumstances, I might have appreciated the view, but right now saving her life was all that mattered. What I didn't realize was that a crowd had gathered, on the opposite bank and behind me. Palace maids, eunuchs, even a couple of the emperor's concubines, and Princess Changle herself. They'd all been drawn by my shouting and the splash. I checked the maid's breathing and pulse. Weak. I started chest compressions based on the CPR training from my previous life. When that didn't work, I tilted her head back and started mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. That's when the screaming started. From the crowd's perspective, some strange man had broken into the emperor's private garden, torn a maid's clothes off, and was now forcing himself on her in broad daylight by the lake. "Stop it, you animal." Princess Changle was right behind me, face twisted with fury. I pulled my mouth away from the maids and turned around. We locked eyes. Sun Jian, Princess Changle, we both froze. Her finger shot up, pointing at me, her face a mask of rage and disgust. She'd never imagined the famous Sun Jian was this kind of depraved pervert. I looked at her. I looked at the unconscious half-naked maid beneath me. I looked at the crowd of horrified palace women staring at me with pure hatred and revulsion. And then it all clicked. Oh no. Oh no. I looked at the scene. Unconscious maid on the grass, clothes torn, body exposed, and me standing over her with wet lips from mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. There was absolutely no way to explain this. "Princess, let me explain." But when I stood up, Changle thought I was coming for her next. She screamed and stumbled backward. "Help! Someone save me! This pervert, stay away from me!" I froze, completely speechless. Then the system decided this was the perfect moment to chime in. Ding! Princess Changle's affection. -1, -1, -1, -1, -1. Ding! Affection has dropped below 1. Current value, -6. Ding! Warning! When affection goes below -5, the bound person has developed killing intent. Please be careful. Killing intent? She wanted me dead? I wanted to jump in the river myself. Her screaming brought a swarm of maids and eunuchs running over. Even a couple of the emperor's concubines who'd been watching from across the lake came rushing to the princess's side. Who is this animal? How dare he do such things in broad daylight in the imperial garden? Changle's personal maids formed a wall in front of her, pointing at me and shouting. I stood there like an idiot, unable to form words. If I said I was performing rescue breathing, would anyone believe me? I barely believed it myself looking at the scene. Changel identified me to everyone. His name is Sun Jian. My father just made him Tiger Guard Deputy Commander. He's also the Crown Prince's reader. The whispers started immediately. Everyone knew my name, but the gap between my heroic reputation and what they'd just witnessed was enormous. He's Sun Jian? No way. Must be all lies. He's clearly a fraud, doing that to a palace maid right here. He doesn't even respect the emperor. I stood there being stared at like a zoo animal, unable to move forward or backward. A concubine named Lady E stepped forward. She was the highest-ranking person present, so it fell to her to handle this. To her credit, she was calm. Sir Sun, why are you in the Imperial Garden today? And what exactly were you doing just now? I bowed respectfully. Your ladyship, I was saving that maid's life, not assaulting her. She fell into the water. I pulled her out, but she'd swallowed too much water and stopped breathing. I was performing a rescue technique. Liar. Princess Changel cut in, her face flushed red. I saw everything. You were pressing on her chest and putting your mouth on hers. Everyone saw it. You disgusting, shameless. Lady E raised her hand to silence the princess. Let him finish. I explained that the emperor himself had sent me here to accompany Princess Changel today, and Wangda had personally escorted me to the garden. Lady E nodded slightly. That part at least made sense. If I didn't have imperial permission, just being in the inner palace would be a death sentence, never mind anything else. Lady E acknowledged that my being here on imperial orders made sense, so she set that aside. Then she asked the real question. Why are the maid's clothes torn to shreds? I explained as best I could. She was underwater. I couldn't swim. There was nothing to grab onto, so I had to pull her up by her clothing. Water resistance and gravity did the rest. The dress just ripped. Fair enough. Nobody could argue with that logic. But then Princess Changel jumped back in. Fine. Explain what you were doing to her after you pulled her out. My face went hot. The chest pressing, the mouth to mouth. Yeah, that was going to be a tough sell. Your Highness, what I was doing is a legitimate rescue technique passed down through my medical training. It's called chest compression and artificial breathing. It can revive someone who's stopped breathing after drowning. Changel wasn't buying a word of it. Nonsense. I've never heard of any such method. Lady E, send this pervert to the punishment bureau immediately. Then I'll report to father. I was saving her life. When did I ever touch her inappropriately? I shouted, losing my composure. Nobody cared. Lady E thought it over and agreed with the princess. Even if I was an important official, the crime happened in the emperor's private quarters. Protocol demanded I be detained first, and the emperor informed. Several eunuchs moved toward me with hard eyes. No way was I letting a bunch of castrated servants put their hands on me. I had 80 combat points. I clenched my fists, ready to fight. Then, a miracle. The maid suddenly coughed up water and opened her eyes. She's awake. She's awake. I was more excited than anyone. Only she could clear my name. But the eunuchs kept coming at me anyway, as if nothing had changed. Are you blind? The patient just woke up. I dodged their lunges like a ghost and kicked all 4 of them flying. They hit the ground groaning. Sun Jian, how dare you attack people in the imperial palace? Changel screamed. I snapped back. Princess, the girl is awake. Instead of checking whether I'm innocent, you're sending eunuchs to grab me? I'm the Tiger Guard Deputy Commander. I lead tens of thousands of soldiers. You want me dragged away by 4 eunuchs? How am I supposed to show my face tomorrow? Changel had the eunuchs carried away, then marched over to the maid with Lady E to hear her side of the story. And back off from her, everyone, I called out. She just nearly drowned. Crowding her will make it hard to breathe. They all looked at me with suspicion, but Lady E waved everyone back. The maid, her name was Lu Yin, coughed up more water and slowly came around. She recognized the princess and Lady E, speaking in a weak, thin voice. Lady E asked what happened. Lu Yin thought for a moment. I was reaching for the kite at the water's edge. I slipped and fell in. Then, I think a man in blue clothes saved me. The moment Lu Yin said a man in blue saved her, everyone's eyes shifted to me. Their expressions changed from hatred to confusion. So maybe I really was telling the truth? Princess Changel held Lu Yin in her arms and pointed at me. Was it him? Yes. Lu Yin nodded firmly, looking at me with nothing but gratitude. And your clothes? Lu Yin thought back. He was pulling me out of the water. I think they tore when he grabbed me. There it was. Truth, finally. Changel froze for a second, and I could see a tiny flash of guilt cross her face. But she pushed on stubbornly. Do you remember what he did to you after pulling you out? Luyan's memory of the unconscious period was hazy, but she managed to recall something. I think, right before I woke up, he was pressing on me. That's when I coughed out the water. I let out the biggest exhale of my life. Thank God this girl remembered something. Without that, I'd never have been able to explain the mouth-to-mouth part. Everyone else relaxed too. The whole picture finally made sense. Everything I'd said checked out. Lady E stood up and smiled awkwardly at me. Sir son, I owe you an apology. It seems we truly misjudged you today. She turned and ordered all the maids and eunuchs to forget everything they saw and never gossip about it. Where was this reasonable attitude 10 minutes ago? You could have said, maybe the famous war hero imperial appointee isn't actually assaulting maids in broad daylight before sicking eunuchs on me. Then the system chimed in my head. Ding. Princess Changle's affection, 1, 1, 1, 1. Current value, 9. From -7 to +9, just like that. This princess's emotions flipped faster than a pancake. Just like her brother and her father, mood swings at the speed of light. After Lady E left with her entourage, it was just me, Changle, and one remaining maid. The princess's face was red, and she wouldn't look at me. So, princess, everyone's gone. Nothing you want to say to me? Well, how was I supposed to know that was? Rescue? She was remembering the chest pressing and mouth to mouth, and her blush deepened to the color of a tomato. Fine, you don't have to apologize. You're a noble princess after all. I'm just a lowly reader and deputy commander. I shrugged dramatically. That did it. She bit her lip, struggling with herself, then finally squeezed the words out. Okay, I'm sorry. I was wrong about you. Well, I suppose I can reluctantly accept that. What do you mean reluctantly? She pouted, then changed the subject. So father really sent you? Yeah. He's busy with state affairs and felt bad about breaking his promise to you again. So he sent me to keep you company, watching fish, enjoying flowers, boating on the lake. She sighed softly. That's the 9th time he's broken a date with me. Then she looked up with a small smile. But since you're here instead, I'll let him off the hook this time. The little princess stuck out her tongue cutely and announced she didn't want to watch fish or ride boats anymore. She wanted me to teach her archery. Archery? I was a delivery driver in my past life. Sure, my system-enhanced body could pull a heavy bow, but I'd never actually trained in shooting. I could draw the string, but couldn't hit a target to save my life. I really don't know how to shoot, I told her honestly. She didn't believe me. Everyone says you're the greatest warrior around. You broke a royal bodyguard's rib. How can you not shoot? When arguing didn't work, she switched tactics and started acting cute. Please? Pretty please? Just teach me. Was she seriously using a baby voice on me? I had to admit, it was effective. She was absolutely stunning. Flawless skin, perfect features, incredible figure. I wouldn't mind spending time with her, but I genuinely couldn't shoot. I asked why she was so obsessed with archery instead of normal princess stuff like embroidery or music. I already know all that, she said matter-of-factly. Been learning since childhood. Boring. No challenge. Turns out she wanted to compete in the Grand Court Assembly, a massive event held every 2 years where foreign kingdoms sent envoys, and there were competitions and demonstrations. She wanted to represent her father and prove herself. She pointed out that women weren't banned from participating, and history had plenty of great female warriors. Fine. If the princess insisted, I'd figure it out. I have a deal for you, I said. Answer one question, and I'll teach you and give you an amazing bow. Her eyes lit up. She'd heard about my weapon inventions. Ask away. My question was simple, but had been bugging me forever. Why is everyone in the royal family named Li Qian something? Li Qianxing, Li Qianro, Li Qianxue, except the second prince, who's called Li Qingru. She laughed and explained. When the first and second princes were born, the emperor was still just a regional warlord called the Qian King. The empire didn't exist yet, so he hadn't established a formal naming system. The first prince died young anyway. By the time the third prince, our crown prince, was born, the emperor had unified enough territory to create a proper dynasty and set Qian as the generational character for all future children. Mystery solved. It was similar to how the Ming dynasty's founding emperor had inconsistent naming for his earliest grandchildren. Now teach me. And where's my bow? She held out her hand expectantly. I had a semi-automatic compound bow with infrared sighting in my system backpack, plus 10 arrows. Might as well give it to the princess as a gift. Close your eyes, I said. Huh? What? I said close your eyes. When Changle closed her eyes obediently, I turned around and pulled the infrared semi-automatic compound bow from my system backpack. I'd originally gotten 5 of these from the lottery, but I'd given the others away and only had this last one left. Open your eyes. When she saw the sleek black and gold bow with its strange pulleys suddenly appear in my hands, her eyes lit up like stars. Wow, did you just do a magic trick? I handed it over. She worried she wasn't strong enough to pull it. I told her not to worry. This bow used a clever pulley system that made drawing effortless. Even a child could pull it to full draw. And instead of releasing the string by hand, you squeezed a trigger. I started teaching her grip, aim, fire. Standing behind her, I guided her hands into position, one hand on the bow frame, the other on her wrist. Arrow tip, sight, target, 3 points in a line. Draw, load, squeeze the trigger, fire. The arrow screamed through the air like thunder, punched clean through the target 100 meters away, and buried itself deep into the ground behind it. The tail end was still vibrating with a metallic hum. I honestly didn't notice how she was reacting to me standing that close. I was focused on the instruction. But looking back, her face was completely red. Cheeks, neck, ears, everything. Her arms had gone stiff. This was apparently the first time she'd ever been that physically close to a man. When she finally looked at where the arrow had landed, her jaw dropped. This is impossible. The power, the accuracy. This bow is a divine weapon. Did you really invent this? Something like that? I said with a casual grin. Is it true what people say? Are you really an immortal who fell from heaven? I was enjoying the worship. Usually, I was the one flattering others. Having someone fawn over me for a change felt pretty great. This bow is yours now, I told her. Her eyes actually got watery. Really? Does it have a name? I almost said infrared semi-automatic, but caught myself just in time. It's called the Black Gold Compound Bow. It's all yours. Black Gold Compound Bow. She hugged it to her chest like a treasure, then bowed deeply to me in gratitude. She couldn't stop smiling. The system chimed right on cue. Ding. Princess Changle's affectionate. Current value, 17. Ding. Affection has exceeded 10. One standard targeted lottery draw is now available.